3 minutes after 10 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. I am occasionally envious of the lazier end of this profession when you could point out at times like this that it probably would be cheaper to put people up in Claridge's than it would be at the moment to send them on mythical flights to Rwanda. But these events are, I think, probably rather more serious than that kind of behaviour allows. The Rwanda thing is bonkers. It is one of the maddest things I can remember reporting on, witnessing, reading about in all the time that I've been doing this job. And remember, I was doing this job throughout Brexit. I was doing this job throughout all the promises about what Brexit would bring to British people. And I was doing this job when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister. And I was doing this job when Liz Truss was Prime Minister. I imagine some younger listeners find that impossible to believe. And I am currently doing this job while Rishi Sunak is Prime Minister, a man who has gone from self-styled hero to absolute zero in record-breaking time. So I have observed some truly, truly mad moments during the years that I have been doing this job. I don't think I was here for the Cones hotline, but I get quite nostalgic for the Cones hotline. Could you imagine living in a country where things were so placid and calm and stable that the Prime Minister thought to prioritise roadworks where no one appeared to be doing any work? This was what animated John Major during his premiership, so much that he introduced a national scheme that would allow us to report roadworks where no one was doing any work. It was called the Cones Hotline. He was so animated by the sight of cones on motorways, behind which no workers appeared to be toiling, that he released a phone number that you could call and report. I don't know what happened, if anyone. Did anyone ever pick up the phone? Did anyone ever ring it? But imagine being Prime Minister of a country that was in such comparative calm waters that a Prime Minister could prioritise unattended roadworks on British highways. I get nostalgic for that. I don't think I was in the job back then. I can't have been, can I? But this one's bonkers. The Rwanda stuff is bonkers. Imagine it went brilliantly and did all the things it was designed to do and all the things it said on the tin. It would not even come close to touching the sides of the scale of the purported problem it is supposed to solve. It is so utterly detached from anything that remotely resembles reality that one wonders what the hell is going on in the minds of the people promoting it. And then you remember that they are politicians whose entire success now is built upon breaking things and promising to make life worse for other people. Now, I wish this wasn't true. I'm not a fan of simplistic analyses or even repetitive explanations. I mean, the reason I love my job so much is because we can explore so much territory together and we can veer off in unexpected directions and discover unexpected answers to well-established questions. And the idea that almost every act and tickle of the current administration can be described and explained and indeed understood under that simple and simplistic analysis is actually, it's bad for business, you know. What are we going to do? Everything can be explained by understanding that certainly since Johnson got into Downing Street and possibly since Theresa May did, everything they've done has been defined by two things. Will it make life worse for, quotes, other people, end quotes, and will it allow us to break something upon a completely bogus promise that will improve people's lives? Go on, think of anything. Think of a policy. And I'll show you how it either involves breaking something with a promise to improve people's lives or promising to make life worse for other people, but not you. Problem being, of course, it probably will end up being you. There is a particularly ridiculous, and I know better than anyone how fierce the competition is for this title, but a genuine contender for the stupidest person on the Daily Telegraph comment pages. And remember, these are comment pages that contain Nick Timothy And David Frost regularly goes there, the bloke that negotiated the oven-ready Brexit deal and then tried to disown it before the ink was even dry. The Daily Telegraph comment pages regularly promote people who's... Alistair Heath, who edits the Sunday Telegraph, he's the guy that called Liz Truss's budget the best he'd ever seen, the best of his lifetime. Absolutely. And they're all still in their jobs. Is there another profession in the world where you could be so catastrophically and comedically awful without any... comeback or any repercussion at all for your professional incompetence? I don't think there is. But there's one chap called Tim Stanley. You've probably not had the misfortune of encountering him, but he has started complaining already that he's got a friend. He has a friend who's in a blind panic because he's worried he won't be able to bring his partner into the country under James Cleverly's immigration plans. That's incredible. Daily Telegraph has done more cheerleading for quasi-racist immigration policies than, well, I'd like to say than any other newspaper in the country, but that would involve forgetting the Daily Mail. And while many of us wish we could forget the Daily Mail, it's probably, on a day like today, important not to. So Daily Telegraph columnist suddenly realises that they do actually exist, these people against whom these nasty policies are directed, and his friend is not going to be able to bring his partner to the country because they don't have a joint income of £38,700. It's almost as if somebody voted for the Leopards Eating Faces party without realising that the leopards then might come and eat his own face. Don't worry, he'll be on the BBC in 5 minutes offering his opinions on everything from the situation in the Middle East right through to, I don't know, the price of eggs. But there it is. I mean, who are these policies designed to please? The Rwanda policy is stone cold bonkers. Because even if it did the things that it isn't doing but they told you it would do, it wouldn't make the blindest bit of difference to anything. In fact, the closest you ever come to understanding the Rwanda policy is watching Suella Braverman have a sort of, one must choose one's words carefully at this moment because some people may be eating, having a sort of a fit of a spasm of ecstasy, while imagining a plane full of refugees taking off and flying to a country where very recently refugees were shot dead for protesting about their food rations. That is the sort of image, the sort of dream, the sort of vision that inspires the former Home Secretary into a spasm of ecstasy. In fact, she dreams about not even the plane taking off, but the Daily Telegraph front page. So you live in a country now where a former Home Secretary, a doubly disgraced Home Secretary, can have a spasm of euphoria and dream of the day when her favourite newspaper carries a front page detailing the deportation of refugees to a country where refugees get shot, and then a columnist in the same newspaper can have a fit of the vapours when he discovers that actually these horrible policies, they're going to affect people that I know as well. Well, that's not cricket. That's not what we signed up for. These policies are supposed to make other people's lives worse, not the lives of people that we know, not our lives. So you name the policy, I'll show you exactly where it either promises to break something, whether it's membership of the European Union or subscription to the European Convention on Human Rights or whatever, membership of NATO. Some of them have started moaning and whining about now. They'll break stuff, or they will promise to make other people's lives worse. 12 minutes after 10 is the time. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where we turn our attention now to a frankly extraordinary intervention from a very, very beleaguered Prime Minister. NHS leaders and charities are already warning that the elderly and disabled will pay a heavy price for this crackdown on foreign care workers. The minimum salary needed to get a skilled worker visa to the UK is going up to £38,700. That's about 50%. And I can't quite comprehend why they're doing it. Care workers and NHS workers will get some exemptions from this, from the new higher threshold, because the NHS is in such desperate need, but they will no longer be allowed to bring their dependents. So the people coming to this country to look after us, to look after you and me, to look after our grannies, to look after our dads, to manage their medication and wipe their bottoms, they're not allowed to look after their own children. They're not allowed to look after their own partners. They can come here and look after us, but they can't look after their own families. They can't bring a family member with them. The shortage occupation list is being reformed. So they're just shortening the list. So here is a list of occupations where there are shortages. Well, how are we going to fix that? We need more people to come. No, Tristram. We are going to take some of the occupations off the list. Oh, I see. Does that mean that they're no longer suffering from grave shortages? No, it doesn't. It just means we're taking them off the list. That's politics in Brexit Britain now. Here is a list of occupations where there are profound and serious shortages of staff. Here's the list of professions. Well, that's a political problem. We need to fill those roles. Well, no, we don't. We don't actually need to fill those roles. What we could do instead is simply take some of those professions off the list. And then there will be fewer vacancies in shortage professions. I don't want to be rude, but even if you fell for Brexit, surely you're not going to fall for this as well. So here's a shortage profession. Here is a sector where there are measured shortages, a shortage occupation list. What are we going to do to it? Well, we're going to reduce the number of occupations on the list rather than fill the vacancy. What's the best way? What is the best way of closing down a list of vacancies? What is the best way of filling vacancies? Well, you stop calling them vacancies, or you take them off the shortage occupation list. And the salary level for a family visa, which is separate to a work and student visa, is also rising to £38,700. And I'll tell you something else. If you're currently earning less than £38,700 and you've fallen for all the racist claptrap that's been fed to you since about 2015, you're about to become a second-class citizen in your own country, because everyone will know that foreigner over there doing that particular type of job is actually earning more money and therefore paying more tax and therefore has a better right to utilities and public services than you have. I'm joking, by the way. I don't feel like that, but you do. That's how you make your judgments. That's how you've been groomed and gaslit into thinking about the world. So what are they doing? What are they actually doing? We have hundreds and thousands of vacancies in this country in all manner of sectors, and they are going to make it harder for employers to fill them. 0345 6060 973. Even if you believe that there are, quotes, too many emigres, end quotes, in this country, and you acknowledge, you don't mean those ones there, you don't mean James Cleverly's mum or Suella Braverman's parents or your friend from over there. Don't mean that. No. I mean those ones there. I mean them, yeah. So even if you think there are too many immigrants, how do you square the shortage occupation list? How do you square the job vacancies with the government's decision to turn off taps or to turn down the flow of humanity into the kind of roles that are currently empty? And also, do you know what else I'm interested in? Andrew in Durham has just prompted this. If you earn less than £38,700 a year, I'd love to know how you feel about this. Just genuinely how you feel about it. It may not be my first question of the morning, but I think it imposes a fairly unpleasant financial hierarchy. As if a job that is paying less than £38,700 a year is somehow substandard or inferior. Andrew in Durham earns less than that. He earns 14 grand a year less than that. And he works for the government. And he asks, who is this incompetent idea aimed at pleasing? And I think, Andrew, I will take your question and run with it this morning. There you go. That's live radio for you. That dropped at 10:16. That text from Andrew, and it's now 10:17. Who is this incompetent idea aimed at pleasing? Who is supposed to be delighted by a decision designed to make it even harder for all manner of sectors, but let's say most obviously health and social care, although they'll be exempt from the higher threshold, they will no longer be allowed to bring their dependents, so you've made that job less attractive. Here is a job vacancy. Here is a candidate. Let's make the job vacancy even less attractive than it is already when we haven't filled. I mean, I could go on all day. I know what you're thinking. Please don't. But I really could go on all day. Here is a job vacancy that we cannot fill. And today, Rishi Sunak and James Cleverly make that job even less attractive to someone thinking of coming from overseas to do it. Who is that supposed to please? 0345 6060 973. Here is a job vacancy that we cannot fill. Let's now make that job even less attractive to the only people on the planet currently considering the possibility of filling it. 0345 6060 973. That would be health and social care. The other side of this is employers. You, and I don't care what sector you're in, you are currently trying to find staff and you have resorted to casting your net overseas. At the moment, you can pay those foreign staff, this is a Conservative Party post-Brexit policy, you can pay them 20% less than the going rate for a British staff member. That's been taken away. Now you have to pay them, to get them to come here, you have to pay them £38,700 a year. What is going to happen to your business? Okay, there are two questions for you here. One, inspired by Andrew in Durham. Who is this idea designed to delight? Who is it aimed at pleasing? 0345 6060 973. And number two, if you are an employer currently looking for staff, what is the increase to £38,700 minimum for a foreign worker? You can still pay peanuts to a British worker. What is that going to do to your business? And if you are a racist, I know you don't ring me anymore because, well, it's all gone a bit wrong, hasn't it, lads? But if you are a racist, how do you feel about the fact that you are being described effectively by this incredibly right-wing government as worth less money than a foreigner? 0345 6060 973. I'm not expecting many answers to the third question, but I want lots of answers to the first two. Who is this designed to please and how will it please them? And what's it going to do to your business? 0345 6060 973. Because unless I'm misunderstanding something fairly clear, fairly profound here, that there are two human beings, right, and one job. If you want to give it to the foreign person, you're going to have to pay them twice as much as you'd have to pay the British person. And that's supposed to delight racists. I must be misunderstanding something somewhere. Anyway, get stuck in. Do you want the number? You know what happens if I don't give you the phone number? Same people ring in every day. 0345 6060 973. I'd like to hear from people who've never phoned a radio station before, who've never thought they'd ever dream of phoning a radio station before, or, of course, from people who've phoned radio stations all the time. But only if you've got something interesting to say. Who is this bizarre and unpleasant policy designed to delight? And what's it going to do to your business? It's 10:21. 24 minutes after 10. I'm going to read you a little quote that's in my new book, which oddly someone else has just tweeted, not in response to this radio programme, but it's testimony from someone who used to work in the think tank environment, the secretly funded lobby groups masquerading as think tanks and being invited onto programmes everywhere. And it's the sort of thing that he would hear at get-togethers. Are you ready for this? Publicly funded care workers aren't essential. If people are getting old, they should have worked harder when they were younger. Why should taxes pay for their laziness? Now, how close is that to the kind of stuff you hear on a regular basis, except it's directed at single mothers or, I don't know, pregnant women who can't give up cigarettes, or foreigners in general, or immigrants or refugees in particular, or unemployed people, or people that can't afford to feed their families, or people that have got hygiene poverty and can't afford shampoo. How often have you heard a variation of that little line there? If people are getting old, they should have worked harder when they were younger. Why should taxes pay for their laziness? Because there's a problem with that kind of rhetoric is eventually it could be you. Simon's in Coulsdon. What's going on with this policy, Simon? Right,
well, I mean, as I'm listening to you, I'm trying to pay my mother's care home bill. This month, it will be £5,578.41 for 1 month. And if they
Shucks.
do this to care home workers and push up their salaries, I don't know what I'm going to do.
You're all right. No,
stop,
relax. Because there are exemptions for care workers. The problem there is that they're no longer allowed to bring their dependents. So the people looking after your mum are going to be prevented from looking after their own family members, which I think may well make the job even less attractive than it is already, and therefore there will be vacancies, and perhaps in order to fill vacancies they will have to put wages up. But you're not currently today facing an even bigger hike than you're currently facing.
Okay, well, I stand corrected.
That's all right. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
What about the idea that the people your mum depends on are having their life made worse by the government?
Well, I think it's pretty shabby. I mean, I think most of these people do an awful lot, and they do it well and with much more compassion and patience than I could muster in their position, even though I have quite good qualifications.
Sure.
And I think that they get a very rough deal.
And it's about to get a bit rougher, and that is apparently going to please a proportion of the population, although one wonders which portion it might be. I'll tell you something else. Thank you, Simon, and good luck with your mum. I can't imagine what it's like having to find that sort of sum of money every month with no sort of help or support. 10:27 is the time. If you earn, and I hope this isn't a clumsy question. If it is, then just tell me and I'll stop asking it. If you earn less than £38,700 a year, what message is this policy sending to you? So the government's position now is that if you don't have a job offer in place in excess of just shy of 40 grand, you're not welcome here if you're foreign. You're not welcome here if you're not earning £38,700. Now, if you're not foreign, or if you are already living here, and you're earning less than £38,700, I've got a couple of phone lines for you. I'm going to put a couple of people on pause, on hold, who are queuing up to answer the questions we've already asked. What message does this send to you on less than £38,700 a year? Because I don't know. I haven't got a clue, but I'm very interested to know. That's Adrian in Durham prompting that question. Darren's in Yorkshire. Darren, what would you like to say?
Hi,
Hello.
James. Thank you for having me on. I actually wanted to talk to you about this yesterday when it was announced. I was hoping that you'd ask these questions today.
Well, here we are.
Right. I operate a care home, been operating it for nearly 20 years. I'm in an area which is pretty much 97, 98% white population.
Okay.
20 years ago, all my staff were white. And it's brilliant because
you mean white British, I think.
White British, yeah. Okay. Sorry,
that's all right.
I'm not trying to be racist. In any way,
no, you're not at all. I go because I think 10 years ago you probably would have had quite a lot of Eastern Europeans working for you, but 20 years ago you would have.
There was some. But generally, it's always been. Generally, you want the people you're looking after being looked after by the people that they're most familiar with, speak the same slang of language, know the same kind of things, know the same stories, know the same people, know the same families in the same area.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah, generally, that works really well. But I can't find them now. 20 years later, when we put an ad out, more and more, and the cost of living hasn't helped, COVID hasn't helped. A massive staff left the care when COVID happened, because they thought it's not for them. They're old. A lot of them are older now.
Yeah.
They left it then, and then the next thing that happened is cost of living. They just can't afford to do a care job on minimum wage and live in this country with families.
But the people that you're getting in instead, who will be from
are coming from abroad more and more often. I mean, they're not. They're still able to do the job. We give them the training.
But how can they afford to live here?
I don't know. I don't know. They must not be able to have all the luxuries that people here maybe do have. Maybe they don't have.
What do we mean by luxuries?
Maybe they don't have. I don't know. Sky TV. Maybe they don't have.
And to the people who say
maybe they travel by bus. Maybe they don't have cars. I don't know.
I mean, you should know. If you're their boss, you should have an idea of the kind of life that they're leading.
That's what I'm saying to you. Is these kind of things they're making it work that way. But if you were to say to them, if I was to say to you, now they can't even have their families across, then what leads to consistency in care is a person that's happy and goes home and is happy with their family and has kind of a work-life balance. not a person that comes here and is looking at a short-term fix to like stay in the country longer and can't even bring their family with them.
So there's no silver lining here. It is very hard to work out what it is designed to do. To people listening to this who would just want to know why you don't pay higher wages anyway to get staff, and if
the care is funded by this Care Act, which gets kicked into longer all the way along. So basically, we're funded by councils. So we can only pay what we get funded to pay, and we're now caring for people in care, which are actually 5 years ago, 10 years ago would have been nursing, but they're now classed as just residential. So we get even less money to care for people that have got more problems than what you would have been classing as nursing before.
Where does forgive me for putting this. So I'm not going to accuse you of driving a Lamborghini, but I do read quite a lot about private equity and investment funds owning care homes.
I'm a private family that owns this home.
Right.
But yes, that's generally, if I was to tell you about the statistic of homes, more and more have gone to private equity.
So there's someone's creaming a lot of money off the top.
I don't know what the quality of care is in those places. I don't know how that works.
I think also the book has the asset in it, and then you can borrow money on the asset, and the array, for the putative point in the future when the actual buildings would be sold and the money would be paid back to the lender. But in the meantime, the directors and the investors can take money out because of what the asset is worth. Darren, thank you. 10:32 is the time. Who is going to be pleased with this? I genuinely don't know, because I keep reading and hearing this morning, right-wing backbenchers are delighted. Can someone explain why? Thomas Watts is here now with your headlines. 10:36 is the time. A lot of you pointing out, I was just trying to put the man's mind at rest that although health and social care visas will be exempt from the new higher salary threshold, obviously the cost of care in care homes is likely to go up because staff are going to have to, or management and owners are going to have to pay more money to get the job done. Now, on one level, that's great. On another level, depending on what your politics are, it's not great. I mean, it's great that people get paid more until a Tory comes along to tell you, oh, no, we can't pay people more. That will drive inflation. But we're lifting the cap on bankers' bonuses. That won't. But also, how much profit are these people making? If they have to start paying more money to their staff, there comes a point where there's not much point being in that business in the first place. So it's never really straightforward, but it is clear that if you're already struggling to pay care home fees, if they go up, you will struggle even more. So who is this designed to delight? I'm trying to imagine, in fact, you can join me in this exercise, the mythical fan of this. It's someone who doesn't think that their own relatives will ever need care, or someone who is confident that however much it costs, they're going to be able to afford it, or someone too stupid to understand that 2 + 2 = 4. Someone so boiled by bigotry and xenophobia that they think it is good news to see a reduction in numbers regardless of what it means. It's a bit like the statistical equivalent, something I only really understood during the Brexit conversations, of people who would rather be on a sinking ship saluting a bridge full only of English officers than be on the finest, in part of the finest fleet ever to sail the seven seas, with an officer class and crews as diverse of those that were on the HMS Trafalgar. Look it up. That is what it is. I don't care if my mum's not going to have care. I don't care if the numbers are going there. Too many here. Too many. Enough is enough, says James Cleverly, who often speaks movingly of his own mother coming here to train as a midwife. Enough is enough. But your own mum is not. Don't care. She should have worked harder when she was younger, and then she'd be able to afford to pay the new fees. So you never think that about your own mum. So it's always other people's mums. You never think that about your own fam, your own famalam. Anyway, I'm talking too much. Den's in Bristol. This is a grim one, Den. What's on your mind?
Hi, James.
Hello.
So, I can't really speak on behalf of caregivers. I just wanted to give my account as an engineer.
Yes.
So my girlfriend, she's an immigrant, and she's working in the engineering sector. So she's gotten a degree in aerospace engineering, and come next year, she would have been working in the sector for 4 years. Now, Her predicted pay rise by that point would be around 37,000. So given the Conservatives' latest pay caps or pay conditions, by their definition, she wouldn't classify as a skilled worker. And and this, believe it or not, this is actually the second time now that she's had to go through this. So she had a job originally where the previous cap for an aerospace engineer, now the minimum was 26,000, but for an aerospace engineer, it was actually a bit higher. I think it was around 29,000.
Okay.
The company couldn't pay her that amount, and they actually even suggested her to marry me just so that they could continue to pay her what they could afford.
How romantic.
I know, how romantic. I know, yes. It's like, if you want to pay for the wedding ceremony, you go ahead.
Go down on one knee and say, I've got a memo here from your boss.
Yeah, no, I forgot about that 30 grand that's stashed down the back of the sofa.
Yeah,
sure. But no, and so she had to then leave that job. And now she's been lucky enough to get a new job that can pay her that new threshold. And now she's in another predicament whereby next year she's going to have to come to her current employer and say to them, sorry, 37 is not going to be enough. You're going to have to pay me now even more because of these new
38.7. How often do you apply? How often does she apply for a skilled worker visa? How often do you have to renew it?
So she's got one that's going to last for a year, so it expires next year, basically.
I don't know, and I don't know that you know either, that this is going to apply retrospectively.
No, absolutely, and
I don't think it would. I can't imagine. A lot of people are messaging me who are worried about this. We should probably get someone to look into it a little. This is another problem with policy that's made up simply to delight racists, is that no one ever actually goes into the detail or thinks it through. And even the racists probably don't mean Brazilian engineers to be included on their list of people that they think, enough is enough. Enough Brazilian engineers coming here to engineer things. I can't imagine they're going to start chucking people like your girlfriend out of the country. But then I remember that they made Suella Braverman Home Secretary twice, and my confidence dissipates slightly.
No, of course not. You're absolutely right. We're, at the end of the day, she's built a quite a good repertoire of her work. She's got a lot of good networks, and her manager loves her. So we're very fortunate, and we think that hopefully it could be achievable. But there are many. I mean, I work with many immigrants as well in my job, and I know it's going to be very difficult for them to argue that. And at the end of the day, it's just led to a lot of difficult questions. And I've asked them many times, what's keeping you in the UK at this point? Because it's just, she missed her family.
It's a bit of a leading question, that, then, isn't it? You're just, seriously, mate, you're sounding a bit needy. What's keeping you here, darling, when everything is so awful? But me.
No, but and I've seen how it's affected her mental health. And I've seen how much she misses it. And it's like, and at the end of the day, she's like, she tells me, she's just like, she just feels every day she's trying to give back as much as she can to this country, because she loves being here, but the government, she just feels that we're in a government which just does not care about her needs at all, or just doesn't want her here. And it's just insane that doctors, teachers, nurses, engineers, we need these immigrants who do these jobs. They're the pillars of this country. We need them, and it's just such a pathetic need.
And this makes her feel. So the thing I find hardest to deal with, and I think it's probably even harder for you because you're in the middle of it, is and I've had it quite a lot recently with people coming to book signings and saying lovely things that they mean as compliments, but they're actually quite double-edged, because you sort of think, well, you shouldn't feel like that. You shouldn't feel that there's a radio show you can listen to that makes you feel welcome in this country, where lots of other places or lots of other radio shows that you listen to make you feel unwelcome. And this idea that people have to prove their worth. And then for your girlfriend, I think what you've just communicated very powerfully is it's as if she's doing the high jump and they keep raising the bar.
No, yeah, precisely. That's literally the perfect analogy. No, they just we were really happy for the past few months. Like, finally, all that's over. And
relaxed a bit. Breathe out.
I saw the news when it was released in the news yesterday, and I called her instantly, and I was just like, I can't believe we might have to do this again.
I don't think she will, and I'm going to look into that. I'm 90% certain that it will not be retrospectively applied. That you would to renew a visa will not demand the new threshold. It's simply new visas being issued, because that's not even going to bring numbers down. Then deporting people. I suppose it brings down the net migration number, but it doesn't bring down the number of people coming in. But I'm going to find the information I need to put your mind at rest. And in fact, anyone who's got it to hand can send it in as well. This isn't the BBC. I haven't got the staff to undertake side missions, but I'm fairly confident. Just as I'm always confident someone will pop up in Idiot's Corner. So Mike wrote this message, and then he pressed send, and it's 3 lines long. And this is what he considers to be a valid contribution to this conversation. And Mike's going straight into Idiot's Corner, but I want you to have a modicum of sympathy for somebody whose brain could have been so completely boiled that they've ended up in a place where they think this is a valid contribution to the conversation that we're having. Morning, James, he writes, how many single young men coming in on dinghies are going to want to work in a care home? Just asking. Thanks. Now, I can't quite conceive of circumstances in which that makes sense in the context of a conversation we're having about raising a threshold for people coming here to work in a variety of sectors where there are shortages, or indeed in care homes where they will no longer be able to bring their dependents, which I presume Mike is acknowledging, at least by accident, that single men coming here in dinghies aren't bringing their dependents with them. And of course, if they're applying for asylum, Mike, they're not allowed to work anywhere, although they should be allowed to, because then they'd pay tax. So I'm glad you texted in, because you presumably represent, I don't know, a proportion of the population. But there is a level of bigoted stupidity that is unreachable. And it's important to remember that. What percentage of the population it is, I do not know. I think they're currently drawn to whatever Farage's old party is called now. But that level of bigoted stupidity is unreachable. But if the Tories are appealing exclusively to people like that, I suspect that they're wasting their time, because the people they're appealing to will be too stupid to realise that they're the ones being appealed to. It's 10:46. 10 minutes to 11. I am a Conservative Cabinet Minister and I promise to make other people's lives worse. That's it. That's why they gave 30p Lee a job, isn't it? Although I think there are now 30 deputy chairmen of the Conservative Party, so the position has lost some of its value in the marketplace. I am a Conservative Cabinet Minister and I promise to make other people's lives worse. It's such a horrible, horrible approach to politics, because it is in many ways the opposite of promising to make your life better. It appeals to the very worst of you. It appeals to our basest, nastiest, meanest instincts. Not only, of course, does it enforce the myth that if you are unhappy with your lot, it's the fault of people who've got less, or the fault of people who are recently arrived, or the fault of people who aren't even here yet but would like to be, rather than the fault of the people who accrue ever greater proportions of wealth into ever tinier pockets of the population. So, you know, basic equality, basic fairness, basic distribution, if you're an enemy of it, if you love the idea of almost Tudor levels of inequality or medieval levels of inequality because you're on the right side of it, then you love racism. You need it. It's why your newspapers put so much effort into turning their readers against immigration in particular and against émigrés in general, because, you know, the minute you stop getting angry about immigration is the minute you start asking why that bloke's got 10 houses and moats. Oh, I don't know, packs of beagles. I don't know, what do rich people spend their money on these days? Why has that bloke got all that stuff? It's not through business acumen. That's different. People who are thriving through business acumen we need. But people who are just sitting on huge pots of money and watching them grow ever fatter, ever bigger, are probably more responsible for you having less money than you'd like than the window cleaner around the corner, or the lorry driver up the road, or the Brazilian engineer who is now worried about even staying in this country. So you know that they're appealing to this grim impulse that we all have. You know, it's work to keep it tamped down. But eventually, when something's built on lies, the foundations begin to crumble. It doesn't matter whether it's a prime minister, like Boris Johnson, whose entire career was built on lies, and eventually they crumbled, or whether it's a policy, in this case, immigration legislation that is designed to address lies about immigration that Tories have been telling for 13 years. Because the other thing it does, if you're not a member of the plutocrat class, instead you're a member of the governing class, and you've absolutely fluffed up everything for a decade and a half, what better scapegoat could there be than foreigners? You can sort of bank on people being so infuriated and enraged by their own bigotry that they're even going to overlook the fact that you've been in charge for nearly a decade and a half, during which period of time immigration's gone through the roof. You've been persuaded that immigration is a bad thing, and you're so boiled and bent by that fury that they've fostered in you that you're going to forget the fact that the people now telling you that immigration is the source of all their problems are the people that have presided over exponential rises in immigration, up to and including Brexit, which they sold you on the promise it would reduce immigration. I mean, how? I apologise for using the word stupid so much today, but cometh the hour, cometh the adjective. How stupid do you have to be to let the people who sold you Brexit on a promise that it would reduce immigration, presided over 13 years of government during which immigration has risen exponentially, and continue to claim in public that immigration is a problem while clearly recognising in private that it's an economic necessity, and now they no longer need to worry about economic necessities because they're not going to be in power this time next year. They can go all in on the culture war in the hope of minimising the damage that's going to be done to them at the ballot box next year by winning the votes of people who are too stupid to understand that what they support in private, they attack in public because it lets them off the hook for having fluffed up everything during 13 and a half years of government. I mean that. I genuinely mean that. How stupid do they have to be? How stupid do you have to be? I mean, how many people are as stupid as Mike? Morning, James. How many single young men coming in on dinghies are going to want to work in a care home? Just asking. Thanks. How many people are as stupid as Mike? 15 to 20% of the population? If you get half of them on side, then the Tories minimise the damage that's going to be done at the next election. It's all there, isn't it? Lee's in Belfast. Lee, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Thank you for letting me on this morning. I'm a 24-year-old in Belfast. I work as a recruitment researcher. I earn about $26,000 a year. In 2020, I met my girlfriend, Sarah. Yeah. She is a Malaysian. We met while I was studying chemical engineering. She was studying law. We got together back in October 2020, and we've been together 3 years now. In February, it was my plan to go to Malaysia because we're living apart now because we were living together when we were in Leeds. That's when I took up the job. That's when she finished her 2 degrees.
Right.
And basically, university messed up her visa and she had to go home.
Okay.
In February, I was planning to go marry her, to go and propose to her.
Hang on, does she know this?
She's had to because of the situation. And basically, whenever we've been talking about this for quite a while, I had this whole plan going on, and the plan was to go over in February, and then try and get her over in September because she wants to live with me here. We want to live here. I mean, she wants to work. I want to work. We're both very young people wanting to get married, live together, and work in Northern Ireland. Yeah. I don't know if you know what the sort of how differently it is for what the cost of living in Northern Ireland compared to the rest of the UK, but it is much lower. And as a reflection of that, the salaries are so much lower here as well.
And yet the threshold is exactly the same.
And yet the threshold is exactly.
So you're just shy of the 26,200 that you would have needed.
It's not even 26,200 because I'm a British citizen. All I would need at the moment is 19,600.
To bring us back, 18,600, forgive me, for a foreign national to join a British spouse in the UK, 18,600 you'd need. So you cover that, and that's about to go up to 38,700.
Which I don't even. If I was twice my age with twice the amount of experience I have in the company and everything was going well, I don't even know how to even hit that.
Mate, I'm so sorry. This is nightmare for you.
I woke up and I said, my mom asked me how I was, and I said, I feel like my life's been destroyed.
Oh, mate.
I spent last night, we went to see my grandfather, and last night, and he was trying to talk to me, and I spent the whole time just staring, just contemplating the most darkest things. My head is not in the right place. Hey, I've had to take the day off work.
Come on, yeah. Well, I understand why, because they've just literally set fire to your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have gone out in February, proposed to Sarah, brought her back. You'd set up home together in Belfast, or move in with your mum for a while you found a flat to live in.
I'd have to find a place first, but I was looking at places, and then she'd be able to, I'd be able to work, she'd be able to work, and then
have you spoken to her? Well, that's the point. She would be able to work, but not in a job that she'd have lined up in advance to get you over the threshold.
because we're 23, because we're 20, she's 23, I'm 24.
Yeah,
we're trying to find any job even trying to find a job full off that would support her on a visa is hard enough. Never mind a position that's going to pay a person that young that much. It's basically impossible here.
What are you going to do? Have you spoken to her?
I've spoken to her, and the most likely outcome is I am going to have to leave the country.
You're going to move to Malaysia?
That's the most likely outcome.
You've got an Irish passport, though, haven't you?
I've got a British passport. I'm Northern Irish. I have a British passport. An Irish passport.
First thing you've got to do, get yourself an Irish passport, because that opens up doors that are shut to people who knew exactly what they were voting for in 2016, and all the poor sods like me who got dragged into it with them. So get yourself an Irish passport. It opens up your options. You're entitled to one as a proviso of the Good Friday Agreement. And then we're double checking. There's no way it's going to be retrospective. You could. I mean, the problem is I don't know. It's his spouse, isn't it? So you can't just bring a girlfriend over. You'd have to be married already. I'm just thinking you might be able to nip under the wire before the portcullis drops. Do you see what I mean?
I have a friend who went through a similar situation a few months back with her girlfriend from Canada, and their fiancé visa for application took 6 months to come in. So if I were to do it today, I would be lucky if I got it by May, which is already when this is imposed, and we don't know if I would be applying under the new rules because they've already just been announced.
I don't know what to say to you, man.
It's okay.
It's not okay. It's not okay.
I know. It's okay that you don't know what to say. It's not okay. I've had a really bad day.
Of course you have. And you've done absolutely nothing to deserve it. It's just like the definition of unfairness. It really is. I want to say something reassuring, but I'm going to sound like a 1980s new romantic pop star, Lee. I say something like love will come good in the end, or love will conquer all, but that's not really very helpful in the current context. I'll tell you what, I promise I won't sing. That's the best I can. That's the best I can do for you at the moment. I promise I won't sing, but you will get through it. You will find a way. I promise you will. I promise you will, because you have to.
Exactly, that's it. All I can do right now is I'm still. I mean, I don't know if she's listening right now, but I'm still planning, to go ahead with what I was planning for. It doesn't stop what I want to do, but
it just puts big obstacles in your way to get together, to start building your life together. Let me know how you get on. Keep in touch, Lee. Promise?
I will do, James.
Seriously.
Yes, I will do.
If I find out anything in the detail as more emerges that might be of use or of help to you, then we'll get back in touch with you as well. Can we make sure we've got Lee's details on the record? Ah, man, come on. And we cross live now to James Cleverly. Enough is enough. I do want to hear from you as well if you are below this threshold, but not in need of a visa. So, what message does this say? I'm furious, by the way. I'm 52% furious, 48% gutted for Lee. And what do you do now? Do you think, they didn't mean you? Oh my God, we're back to I didn't mean you. Aren't we? If we could find a half-wit who likes James Cleverly's new policy, and I don't think the curse of O'Brien has ever come true as quickly as it has in the case of Cleverly. I told you when I said vaguely warm. I liked one thing that he did, right? He arrives at the Foreign Office and he says, I will praise people in public and I will punish them in private. And I think that's good leadership. Braverman and Patel and other people were at the Home Office, forgive me, were the opposite. Terrible people. I've been proven bully in the case of Patel, and a double ministerial code-breaker in the case of Braverman. I mean, really grim politicians. And Cleverly turns up and says, I will punish you in private, or I will tell you off in private, and I will praise you in public. And that, I think, is good leadership. So I said a couple of warmish words about him, and then lo and behold, the curse of O'Brien kicks in, say something vaguely nice about a Tory, and they turn out to be just as bad, if not worse, than the rest of them. And up pops Cleverly, with a policy designed to delight who? Let's find a half-wit that's delighted by it. Old Mike, who's still in Idiot's Corner. Mike loves it because he's something about dinghies. Blah, 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 blah. I love Nigel. Nonsense. So Mike loves it. All right? But you didn't mean Lee, did you? Didn't mean a young engineer, I beg your pardon, a young recruitment researcher in Northern Ireland who might have to move to Malaysia just to be with his partner, just to be with the woman he wants to marry. So what does this say to you, even if you're not looking to get married? You're not looking to bring a loved one here, but you're currently earning less than £38,700 a year. Because this bit of it is weird. It's an odd number. It's almost double. You want to come here to work, you've got to have a job in place that pays £38,700 a year or more. If you're an employer, what's that going to do to you? But if you're a member of the British workforce, I don't care where you were born. I'm weird like that. I care about the content of your character, not words on your passport or birth certificate. If you're part of the workforce in the United Kingdom currently, and you are earning less than £38,700 a year, do you know statistically you're more likely to be in the categories that James Cleverly is trying to appeal to? You are statistically more likely, and I don't mean this as an insult. This is just a counting. You're more likely to be less educated and more poorly paid. That's a fact. And of course, you're more likely to live in an area of low immigration. So the people most likely to be appealed to by this will be one of the following three, or two of the following three, or all three of the following three. Be low education, low income, living in an area of low immigration. But of course, people with a high education and a high income living in an area of low immigration can also be groomed by the Daily Mail and the Daily Telegraph to think that foreigners are the gravest threat to their security. People with low education and low income living in areas of high immigration will also be more easily persuaded perhaps than some. But generally speaking, those are the three things: low education, low income, area of low immigration. So you're more likely to be appealed to on this. So James Cleverly is saying to you, the foreigners are worth £38,700 a year, but you can carry on whistling on minimum wage. I don't know how that message lands. Maybe I'm missing something and it's not going to land in anything like an uncomfortable or a difficult way. But who the hell is this designed to please? 0345 6060 973. Who is it designed to please? And how do they deal with someone like Lee? Or the other lad whose girlfriend is a Brazilian engineer. 0345 6060 973. Katia is in Acton. Katia, what would you like to say?
I'm equally as livid as you. Who's it supposed to please?
Yes.
I think basically people who don't want immigrants.
Full stop.
I can't think it's anyone else. Yeah.
But even the people who shout loudest about how they don't want immigrants would say they didn't mean you.
Well, I'm not an immigrant.
No, not you. I mean, they say I didn't mean you. They say I didn't mean those immigrants. So I don't.
Yeah. Well.
So who did they mean? Who is the mythical? Who is the putative target of this policy? So we can say it's someone coming here to work in a care home, bringing their husband or their wife. So they're going to be hit hard by this. Who's going to be pleased by that? That bloke in a care home can't bring his wife anymore. Who's going to be pleased by that?
Mike, he doesn't want the dinghies.
I'm receiving messages suggesting that Mike's message might have been a sarcastic reference to something that Robert Jenrick said earlier, in which case I'm going to have to swap places with him and put myself in idiot's corner for the first time ever. It's number nuts, isn't it? It's number nuts. It's people who see the number and think we've got to reduce it. I don't care what that means or what that involves. We must just reduce it, even if it means increasing shortages in areas of dire need.
Absolutely. It's going to... Oh, God. When I heard the news yesterday, I was completely livid because the government's bringing out, as you would have heard, the free hours for all the parents in nurseries.
Yes.
Now, we run a small chain of family-run nurseries, and we've just got on to the visa licensing, and we've been finding the most amazing applicants. We thought we'd get them in advance to be prepared to be able to supply more childcare. But now they're closing the door. There's no staff. There's no staff in this country. We can wait a month to get one applicant. And to date, the last few years, it's been, are you qualified?
Yeah.
Yes. Have you got a pulse? Yes. Okay, you're hired.
Yeah. Well, that's not ideal.
It's not ideal. You want, really quality people because the first 5 years of life are so important to future outcomes. And since we started this visa process, I've felt a new zest for life. I've been encountering people who actually want to work in childcare.
Right.
They have qualifications coming out of their ears. They're amazing. And now they're going to close the door. It's just bonkers. And
what's going to happen to your business? Best case scenario, not worst.
It's just going to be stalled. And it's only going to be available for the rich, because already it's extortionate to provide childcare. With less staff, you're going to have to cover all your overheads with lower number of children. So you have to put your costs up. And then we get the blame. We're the bad guys. And everyone thinks, I'm sailing off into the sunset on my yacht, when the honest truth is we actually earn less than most of our parents do, which we know for a fact because they're not entitled to 30 hours.
So you had a brief flash of thinking things were going to get better, and now they're going to get measurably worse. Are you on the shortage occupation list?
No. So recently they looked at it and they considered putting childcare on there, and they said no, we can't put them on the shortage occupation list because the government doesn't fund it properly. So, can you imagine?
Well, I can actually, given who the government is and who it consists of. But to be clear, if you need, so you can't find anyone in this country, and if you wanted to hire someone from overseas, you'd have to pay them £38,700.
Which is insane. But actually, again, they're so cunning. They say it's 38,000, but it's not technically, because they base that on a 48-hour working week.
Right.
So what it actually is about £15.50 per hour, which, given the way the national minimum wage is going up, nurses will probably be on that in a couple of years.
I don't know how it ends. I genuinely don't know how it ends. And I don't think they do either. And that's why perhaps the added dimension of concern to the ones that were in place at 10 o'clock this morning is that knowledge that they are now, I think, and I've been dismissive of this position because it flies in the face of everything that we know about politics and politicians. I think they probably are legislating for opposition and leaving Labour with bigger messes and bigger problems than they would have in a normal civilised country where power was being handed by one elected government to another. Well, actually, speaking of that, there is no clear date on when this kicks in. So as an immigration lawyer here, speaking to Lee directly, I can't ring in because I'm looking after a sick child at the moment, but if an application is submitted, the rules that apply when the application is submitted will be the relevant rules. So that means, A, there'll be no retrospective introduction of this. So what was the name of the lovely lad? Was he in Bristol? With the Brazilian girlfriend? Anyway, that's, I think, like I said, I was 99% certain they won't do anything retrospectively. I think it gets marginally better than that. The rules that apply to you are the rules that were in place when your application was submitted. So if Lee cracks on with all his applications, it won't be the case that the guillotine sort of comes down in the middle of the application process. This, at least, is what our immigration lawyer says. The rules apply based on when an application is submitted. Therefore, if they lodge an application ASAP, even if the rules change, the application has to be decided based on the rules in place at the time of the application. There is no official announcement yet on when the new rules will come into place. Well, I've seen April 2024 somewhere, but you're right, no official announcement yet on when they will come into place. So let's try and keep this couple together, James. And if it's in the UK that they want to make their home, then let's help them make that happen. Absolutely, let's do that for Lee. But who was the fellow? I've forgotten the name of the fellow with the Brazilian golfer. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Good news for both of you, in a way. Or rather, we live in a country now where slightly less bad news than what we thought the news was a minute ago counts as good news. 19 minutes after 11 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. I mean, it is, every way you look at it, it's incredible, because immigration is supposed to drive wages down, right? Because people come here and work for too little. It's not statistically supported except in a tiny number of sectors, including haulage, actually, which is now seeing unprecedented closures of companies as a consequence of other elements of both inflation and Brexit, of course. So the new policy says you can only come here and work if you earn £38,700 a year, which is breaking up families. Both actual and potential, because you also in the care sector where vacancies currently run at about 150,000. I don't know which bit is the most galling, really, or the most bonkers. Here is a sector with epic levels of vacancy, currently relying on overseas labour to fill whatever jobs it can fill against a backdrop of epic vacancies. And Rishi Sunak and James Cleverly have just made it an even less attractive job for overseas candidates who we are telling you can look after our family, but you can't look after your own. That's horrible. Who the hell is that going to please? Who is that going to appeal to? And I don't care whether you answer this question or not. I'm going to keep asking it because I am interested in what it feels like today, if you're on less than £38,700 a year, what it feels like to have suddenly arrived in a category as a member of the British workforce that a foreign-born worker is not allowed to be in. It's beneath them somehow, your wage. I wonder how that feels. Jack's in Northwich. Jack, what would you like to say?
Morning, James.
Hello, mate.
I'm glad you mentioned haulage, and I'm also glad that you mentioned stupidity earlier, because I'm a HGV driver by trade, and I think that this particular policy appeals to a certain type of red wall voter.
Go on.
And that red wall voter is the one that probably has more of a vocation, works in the trade, and earns quite a decent living above the 38 grand mark. So the likes of most HGV drivers, plumbers, bricklayers, etc., etc., etc. And the reason I say that is because when I actually started in as a truck driver just after the referendum, and I stuck out as a Remainer. A lot of people voted Brexit, and the main reason they did was because they were upset about how foreign drivers are keeping the wages down. Now, the problem you have is, and I'm going to sound like a snob saying this.
No, don't worry.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people that work as a truck driver don't tend to be, degree educated. They don't tend to think about things like critical analysis. So when they see the situation as, okay, Johnny Foreigner's bringing my wages down, they don't consider things like the cost of living crisis, inflation, etc., etc., etc. And those people who had those views also, to be honest, had typically, conservative anti-immigration views anyway.
I would buy this analysis in many contexts, but your colleagues, fellow drivers, must know that the industry is completely different now from what it was like in 2017, 2018, and the great driver shortage of 2021. I appreciate what you say about how closely people follow effects, but if you follow the trade media, the trade press, most recently, I think the Grocer, there are reports that it could be coming back again, warnings that the driver shortage issue is far from over. So are you sure? I do understand how much ground you cover when you say that I think he's dropped off the line. We must get him back. I understand how much ground is being covered when you talk about that, but there are not enough qualified drivers to meet haulage demands at the moment. So I don't quite follow how that. I think I can almost see it, but I need Jack to explain it. We'll get Jack back up. Abdul's in Milton Keynes. Abdul, who's this appealing to?
Hey man, how are you doing? I just basically I listened the other day to an eye-opening podcast, which is a Muslim podcast with they invited Nick Griffin on from the BNP. And it was, a lot of these politicians, I kind of feel that they want to say one thing, but actually they hide behind little sound bites and things like that.
Yeah.
But he was saying a lot of things there that kind of made me realise what this kind of thing is appealing to. The government has no ability to control really immigration into this country. They can add on, things to say, there's, we're going to make sure they earn more money. We're going to make sure they don't bring over family, things like that there. But really what they're trying to do is basically make it so it doesn't look like we've got loads of immigration coming into the country. So you can have immigration coming from, white European countries, and you look around.
But that caused Brexit. That caused Brexit. Exactly. So these people weren't comfortable with that either.
Yes, yeah, I know. But basically, from what James Cleverly is talking about, basically the thing there at the moment is if you have immigration there from South Asian communities, there, Muslim countries mainly, a lot of people they don't want to come by themselves. They want to bring their families. Obviously, they want to settle in the country, have children, things like that.
Yeah.
But when we come over to the country, we make it look like obviously there's immigration to the country from our clothes, from our skin color, from the the businesses, all these kind of things that we have. And this is kind of what he's targeting. Is kind of like, okay, well, if we decrease the amount of brown people coming into the country, in effect,
right,
it makes it look like actually we're controlling immigration, when they're not.
So you're talking about because it's numbers, mate. This is designed to bring down measurable numbers. It's a statistically motivated policy, not a socially motivated policy.
But that's why I think is that they can't. I don't think they can control numbers. I think it's impossible
we're at loggerheads then, because categorically this is designed. They've even announced the number that they want to bring it down by.
Yeah, but I think that every single time Tories talking about, sorting numbers out.
Yeah, I know, but we're talking about this time, and we're talking about a very specific and unprecedentedly stupid policy that is specifically designed to address the latest figures, that is specifically designed to bring down numbers. So I think your point stands in a sort of broader general sense, but it's not new. I mean, it's the caller I had, the infamous caller I had, who voted for Brexit because there were too many brown faces behind the tills in Tesco's. I don't think that is what this is doing. This is literally about numbers. It's not even about good immigrant, bad immigrant. It's about all people coming from overseas and the need to reduce it. Thank you, though. Back to Jack. Mate, there's huge shortages in your sector. There's huge shortages again. They're coming back round again in haulage. So how does someone working in a sector where they desperately need staff welcome policies designed to make it harder to get staff?
Well, you mentioned before my phone got cut off that you read the grocer, you read facts, you read data, you absorb the information.
But I'm not a lorry driver, so that's how I find out about lorry driving. If I was a lorry driver, my boss would be telling me that he's struggling to fill vacancies, or she's struggling to fill vacancies.
But in all honesty, James, and again, I am going to sound like a snob, but for the purpose of this debate, I don't care.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you want? Fewer foreigners. I don't care about anything else.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
It's because so many of my colleagues, they do come out with these opinions that I find personally absolutely abhorrent.
You should retune their radios and then put some super glue in the dial. That's what you need to do.
Honestly, mate, if I were to mention your name, people think, they think, so you're a Corbynista, are you? And it's like, no. And
that's Christmas sorted out. You could probably pick up 10 copies down at your local Waterstones. Go for one of the very rare unsigned copies of the new book, Jack. They're like hen's teeth at the moment. And so, I mean, we can laugh, but actually, these people have driven British politics now for the best part of a decade. It's kind of you see, Farage, who gives the impression of being educated, is their hero. Farage and Griffin are like two karaoke singers, really, except one of them's good at singing. Same tune, same backing track, same microphone, but one can sing and one can't. They don't care about anything else. Here's a number, it's too high. Here's a politician promising to bring it down. I welcome that. That's what you're describing. What happens when they can't get, but what happens when there's no staff at their mum's care home?
Well, yeah, exactly. And they'll probably moan about how it costs several hundreds of pounds a week, like one of your earlier callers said. But they won't actually connect the dots because they don't understand how employment actually helps productivity and, reduces stagnation, that sort of thing. It's just, in my mind, it's not their mindset. Their mindset is purely British jobs, British workers, don't care how we get to that goal.
I don't know how many people are in that constituency. I don't think it's going to be, because you started off saying Red Wall, I don't think it's going to be as big as that. I think that the revulsion, rightly or wrongly, today's not the day for discussing it, of Jeremy Corbyn was the biggest measurable factor in that. So that's gone. And support for Brexit driven by a desire to see lower immigration, that's obviously a given. But this one, £38,700 to come and work here if you're foreign. Does that appeal to people who've just got a problem with immigration in general? Does it actually work? They're going to pay them how much? That could be one response, couldn't it?
It could be, but also bear in mind, James, I work in Jonathan Gullis's constituency.
Oh, God.
So,
yeah.
I know I sound awful. I'm doing my own trade a bit of a disservice.
No, you're not, because, it's only like me. I mean, you're not talking about Idiot's Corner. We speak to people all the time who've been persuaded into positions that are actually damaging to their own interests and their own children's interests. And I appreciate your generosity of spirit, but as you've pointed out yourself, it's often simply an absence of proper influence and proper information that pushes people into these positions. And what you've ended up with now is a Conservative Party that actually feeds upon ignorance. And that will always fall apart. And I think this might be a sign of it falling apart rather than it being ramped up. It'd be fascinating to see what happens to the approval figures. It really will. Jack, thank you, mate. Thanks for coming back on. I always like it when a trucker rings in and you can tell by the clicking of the warning lights in the background that they've pulled over to make a contribution, which I always take as quite a compliment. Thomas Watts is here now with your headlines. It's 11:34. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. This is just a bizarre policy, and we know more probably on this programme than anybody about that constituency of people, the people who, if you like, are utterly convinced that there are simply too many foreigners, too many foreign people coming here, regardless of detail or fact. And it was an arresting number, wasn't it? The latest figures for net migration, although 500,000 people a year are leaving the country at the moment, which I think Liam Belfast puts into rather sharp perspective as well. We've also got a huge problem. And I say problem simply in a logistical sense, not a moral sense. We've also got a huge problem with demographics, with the population becoming older, and also older people working less. It's another interesting story in the news today about how the lockdowns changed people's priorities. Now, when it gets written up from a banking point of view or an economic point of view, it's written up as a bad news story. People are working less. But actually, if you were thinking of it from an entirely personal perspective, it could just be a recalibration. Why do I spend so much time doing a job I hate to buy things I don't need? You start recalibrating that, then you might dial down the hours that you're doing, or you might change your working practices. But that leaves holes in a workforce that need to be filled in a country where the birth rate isn't high enough to fill them. Therefore, immigration is the only way in which you can do it. And because of that demographic imbalance, because it's top-heavy, with older members of the population being disproportionately represented in the population, then and it not being self-sustaining because of life expectancy, because of changing working practices, then your only option is to bring people in who are already adults to do jobs that no one else is doing. And that's been turned into a bad thing in a country that needs it more than almost any other. And that's why I have used the word bonkers several times today. Asif is in Glasgow. Asif, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. First time caller. Be gentle, please.
Of course I will, mate. Of course I will.
Listen, I'm not a politician. I'm not into politics or anything, but I just do not understand this policy at all. It's just we've got restaurants, multiple restaurants in Glasgow, and without foreign skilled workers, we would not be open. Our businesses would not have survived or would not survive. In the last year, this year, we've got 5 skilled workers over from abroad on the 26,000 salary, which is fine. But if we needed 5 skilled workers on the 38,000 salary, that would have been impossible for us, and we would not have survived.
Right, well, this is you. I mean, here it is. I mean, right on the money. So you could afford to pay £26,200 a year to chefs, qualified chefs that can cook 100%. Indian food coming over here from India. You simply couldn't stretch to 38. So impossible. It's a £12,500 times 5. It's another 60 grand a year on your wage bill.
Impossible. During COVID, we lost so many chefs, and we had to decide which restaurant to open. We were just moving staff around.
Yeah.
So it's only in the last year, since we've got the skilled workers over, that we're set, we're established. All the restaurants are open. They're running fine. I mean, I would love to get British workers or Asian workers, but going off subject, I mean, nobody wants to work. People only want to work 16 hours or such and such, and without skilled workers, our businesses just would not survive.
So maybe then, these people who, for various reasons, only want to work part-time, I mean, are they going to be sort of whipped into the workplace? Because you don't want staff who don't want to be there, really, on the one hand, but equally, where is the mythical army of humans that are going to fill the holes left by these policies?
If you know any, send them my way. I mean,
yeah, I will.
But I mean, a chef is a hard job. You're in front of a hot cooker, 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. I mean, everyone works 5 days a week, 2 days off. But I mean, it's a very hard job. It's a demanding job as well. You're always on the go, high intense. So this is just madness.
Well, you've got to have to look after the ones you've got, but also what's going to happen? What's going to happen if someone, if a restaurant up the road decides it has to stretch to 38,700, and then your staff find out how much their mate up the road is on for doing exactly the same job? It puts you in a bit of a pickle.
Oh yeah, of course it does. I mean, we give bonuses and stuff, we give incentives and everything to people, so they'll get more money if we stay busy and everything. So everyone has, we do pay them above the 26.
Right.
So, but to get them over initially,
that's what you have to commit to, and that's the offer you have to make. Can I run something by you, completely off topic, completely different, completely random? So I was in a restaurant yesterday, right, and it had an open kitchen. And the manageress comes over and she says, "Why have I got 4 staff in when it's so quiet?" And she sent someone home. Would that be a 0-hour contract scenario?
It is, yeah, it would be, yeah.
Does that happen a lot?
Well, do you know what? Sadly, it does. I mean, your wages are your highest outlay, so you have to save, if possible. Yeah. You have to save money, but not to the point where somebody else is working 2 people's jobs. You have to balance.
But he's turned up that day thinking he's got a day's wage coming, and then he's sent home at 1:30.
Well, no, I would never do that. I would make them work a good shift. Then we close at 10, 10:30, 9 o'clock. You could an hour early. You could send somebody home maybe, but never 7 o'clock, never 6.
Maybe he was clocking off a bit earlier. I mean, I was just struck by it. I didn't want to make a fuss at the time in case I'd misunderstood what was going on. But you're looking at constant. The problem I've got now is that when people were complaining about minimum wage legislation and saying they'd all go bust if they were forced to pay minimum wage, none of them did. So there is a point at which employers can't sustain a business because of costs that are being foisted on them by, I would argue in this case, by quite racist policies. But I can't take your word for it where that point is, because you're probably going to draw it a little bit lower than it actually is, aren't you?
But the minimum wage going up nearly a pound, that's not going to help businesses either. I mean, we have to
there it is.
Do that. For us, it could be £5,000 a week extra if you work out on the staff. We've got 200 staff in the company, so I mean that could be like $4,000 extra a week. I mean, how are you supposed to sustain that? Then, if we needed chefs for $38,000, what's the point of running a business?
I mean, it's the size of the leap that's just so incredible, isn't it? To go from 26.2 to 38.7.
I mean, that's an unbelievable astronomical. 30 maybe okay, you can stretch, because chefs are worth every penny. Because it's like I said, it's a demanding job. It's a very hard job.
Who do you think's cheering this? Just on a personal level, who do you think's going? Yes, great stuff, love it.
I'm not into politics. They're trying to appease whoever they're trying to appease. But for me personally, this is just horrendous.
And you are into politics. Everyone's into politics, whether they realise it or not. Talking about minimum wage, mate, you're talking about politics. Talking about immigration policy, you're talking about politics. It's all politics, Asif. It's all politics.
I know, but listen, it's been really nice to speak to you, James.
Likewise. Do you want to give the restaurants a mention?
Mother India's Cafe, the Lansdowne. We've got a few in Glasgow and Edinburgh.
There we go. I shall look you up next time I'm in the area. I've just been up there now. I missed out on that. 17 minutes to 12 at the time, 11:43. Anthony's in Preston. Anthony, what's going on?
James, hello. Thank you so much for having me. Big fan.
What an extraordinary clear line. Yeah. It sounds as if you're in the room next door.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you look to your left... no, I'm only joking. I'm nowhere near.
Go on.
This policy, it's obviously only appealing to a certain group of people, and I think in retrospect, when a dog's cornered, it starts to bark and it starts to bite, and I think this is what's happening with the Tory party. This is a soundbite. They can very clearly march right through to the next general election saying, we said we'd bring down immigration and we brought down immigration.
Well, we won't have the numbers by the time of the next election anyway, because the numbers at the next election will be for this year. They'll be for 22, 23. So I think that I wonder, and I never go near this kind of conspiracy theory normally, Anthony, but I think they're actually trying to scupper the country.
What, a little bit of setting on fire, salt the earth before we go kind of thing?
I think they're trying to make life harder for businesses as they leave office, and then they can blame the consequences on Labour, while simultaneously keeping the immigration scaremongering afloat and alive.
Could be quite a conspiracy,
I know,
like you say, but at the moment when there's a lack of common sense in these policies, conspiracy is the only rational place to go. And what's the phrase? No matter how crazy it sounds, if everything else has been exterminated, then the one solution that's
whatever is left must be the truth. But you're never going to get a lot of love for Mother India, by the way. Asif's restaurant coming in. A few people saying it's an absolutely brilliant restaurant. But we can't work out who it's designed to delight, except people who've just got a problem with foreigners, and there's a word for that, of course. Although sadly no treatment. Except they could prescribe this show, I suppose. So what is it designed to do? It's designed to make it much, much harder for people who need staff to get staff from overseas. No one truly believes that a huge workforce of currently indolent British people is suddenly going to take to the streets and start marching through the doors of restaurants like Asif's or anything like that. So it makes everything worse without delivering a decline in numbers, because the stats won't drop in time for the rhetoric, for the electoral rhetoric. They can just say we're doing it and label. So it is even the more this doesn't happen very often. It did 2 hours nearly, and it's got more bonkers as time has gone on, not less bonkers.
The more you dig and peel away, the more bonkers it becomes, I assume.
Yeah. No. Well,
one thing there that just really spoke to me as you were dealing with your other callers. Go on. Sorry, go for it.
No, you go for it.
As you were talking about minimum wage and my own situation. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Yeah?
You've got your radio on in the background, Anthony. You are told not to do that, and it's not a yellow card offence, but I am already a bit late for this. 11:49 is the time, and you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Not really nailed it, have we? Apart from the kind of, excuse me, the people who voted for Brexit and thought Boris Johnson was brilliant, but even they're not queuing up, to be honest, in my inbox to say that they love these policies, which will make it much harder for care homes to recruit staff and much harder for highly skilled workers earning 35 grand a year to come here. I'm pretty confident, although the Home Office has been able to confirm it one way or the other for certain, I remain pretty confident that this won't apply to visa renewals. But, Windrush. The government has a long history of deporting people who've got every right to be here because they have introduced a hostile environment. And remember, the woman who introduced the hostile environment, albeit at the behest of an absolute flump called Nick Timothy, who inevitably now writes columns in the Daily Telegraph, she's now cast as the sort of decent, sensible one from the last 4 or 5 Tory prime ministers, Theresa May. So just keep an eye on it. But the question of who it actually is designed to delight, apart from Tory backbenchers obsessed with the numbers but not the actual. So if you stop seeing people as human and see them only as a number, this works. Immigration is too high, we must reduce it. Okay, the numbers, right? But here is a care home. Here are the people. Doesn't matter. Numbers. That's number wang. Earlier caller mentioned Nick Griffin. I thought you'd be amused to know. I mentioned this in my new book, which I haven't plugged much this week. What day is it? Tuesday. Oh, it's early doors. Anyway, How They Broke Britain, available in all good bookshops. Smash hit bestseller. The former leader of the British National Party wanted to move to Hungary. I don't know if you were aware of this. He wanted to become an immigrant. He quite liked the look of Viktor Orban's Hungary. But he was declared persona non grata by the Hungarian government and issued with entry and residency bans. So I guess that's proof that you can control your borders within the European Union. You got to laugh. Martin's in Manchester, to where the English National Opera is about to move, Martin. Some breaking news for you there. I bet that'll go down well with your mates. What would you like to say?
Morning, James. Yeah, I was sort of wanted to call because my story is not too dissimilar to the earlier caller, Lee, who was talking about his Malaysian girlfriend. So I moved overseas in 2001 for about 15 years, and that's where I met my wife. We moved back to the UK in 2016, and I was surprised at the amount of hoops and red tape we had to get through just in order to get my wife and daughter here. So under the original ruling, it was you'd have to be working here under whatever the threshold was. I think it was 26,000 something at the time for 6 months before your wife and daughter were even able to apply for a visa to come and be with you. Now, bearing in mind I've not been in the UK for 15 years, the idea that I'd land here on day one and get a job straight away was, almost impossible.
Sure.
So I spent about almost a year separated from my family. When we actually got the official, the first visa, my wife dropped to her knees. She was in tears, because we were almost having to go to court. We had to get, basically, it was a nightmare. The whole thing was frightening. So,
and this was before. I mean, this is what a lot of people have missed out on. Actually, that the minimum income requirement has been in place for ages. It just hasn't been increased since about 2012. But the thing is, you can't have it both ways if you're a right-wing politician. You can't say that it's too easy to come here and too many people are coming here, and then also explain that it's actually quite hard for most people, including British-born British citizens.
What makes me laugh, though, is when you keep saying, but not you, though, not those.
No, it's not you, mate. It's not you. They don't mean you. They don't mean your wife.
No, I would see family members retweeting stuff. This was around Brexit. I couldn't vote in the Brexit deal because I'd not been here long enough.
Right.
And they'd be posting stuff, and I'd be saying, you do know that you're talking about my wife and your granddaughter, that's who you're talking. Oh, no, we don't mean you.
Bit of a clue there, Martin, as to who we're talking about there.
Well, she doesn't listen anyway, James, to be fair.
I know. But that is, and they'd literally give it. I don't mean you, I mean the other ones.
Exactly.
The ones in the Daily Mail.
The other thing you haven't mentioned is the NHS surcharge that's attached to this as well. That's gone up numerous times. I think that's now around about £1,000. And again, that policy does not make any sense because that policy, they say, was designed to stop tourist, health tourism.
Well,
you can get a tourist visa, no problem, and you don't have to pay an NHS surcharge on that. It's only targeting the people who live here who have to apply for visas.
And is that indefinite? Do you have to pay that? Does your wife have to pay that for as long as she lives here?
I'm not sure if she has to pay it because we're up for renewal in January, so I don't know if she has to pay it after another 2.5 years after that visa, So I don't know yet.
And with respect, and I don't want to be indiscreet, but will the relative you mentioned a moment ago, will they welcome these announcements? Will they join the dots?
I don't think they'll be aware of it until I mention it to them.
Right.
And even then, they won't connect the dots. They won't think much beyond that. They'll, some of them will still continue to think, well, yeah, it's good that they're doing something to deter these foreigners. And I'm thinking, well, you're not even thinking this through properly.
Yeah.
Think it through.
Fewer engineers.
Most of them now are old enough that they're going visiting relatives in care homes and things like that. That has been touched on before.
Yes.
The waiting times for the hospital appointments, this, that, and the other. And I'm going, you're not seeing it. You're not connecting the dots here, are you? Basically, when Brexit happened and everyone went, well, we're not welcome here anymore.
Yeah.
Those, public services have dropped dramatically, and
it's the craziest time to be doing. I mean, you can see that it is. I mean, there's one bit you can see that having record high levels of immigration and record high levels of job vacancies, that's confusing because it means a lot of the people that are coming here are not coming here to do the jobs that need to be done. That is confusing, but the solution to that can't be to make it less attractive to come here. It just can't be the solution to filling the vacancies. It can be a solution to bringing down the numbers and making the vacancies worse.
As your caller earlier, Lee mentioned what's it done to the mental health of his partner? What's it done to the mental health of my wife? She's had to go through... We've not even breathed yet since we've moved back here, and only when she's gone through the 10-year visa process will we be able to have a little sigh of relief. Maybe. Who knows what else they're going to throw in our way,
Yeah, and if this doesn't work, if the Tories stay in power and this lot of policies doesn't work and Rwanda doesn't work, then they just seem to spread their useless net ever wider and cause more upset and stress to more and more people, despite not even addressing the concerns of the racist mob that they seem dedicated to appeasing. Thank you, Martin. James is in Brighton. Last word on this, James. What would you like to say?
Hi. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous.
It's only me.
Yeah, it's only you. Long-time listener, of course.
Thank you.
And first of all, thank you for just being a voice of reason in all these ridiculous times that we live in. Basically, my partner, she's from Malta. She moved here about last year, and we've been together for about 10 years, so long distance for most of it.
Yes.
We got engaged last month. And
congratulations.
Thank you. She basically moved here to do a master's degree at the Brighton University, and she's passed that now, so she's on a graduate route visa.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what that position that leaves me in, because my job, I work on a piece rate, so like my base rate will be about 22.
Right.
But I can easily get to like 28, 29 or whatever, depending on what I do.
Yeah.
But I don't really know what position this leaves us in. Like she works a job in a local shop, but that's more or less, do you know what I mean?
Yes, of course I do. You need a joint income of 38,700. But I don't know what her graduate thing, I don't know what that changes, or probably not a lot. I think there's a grace period after graduation, but I don't know if that applies to masters.
Yeah, well, she's on the graduate route visa, so she's managed to get that sorted. So she's here,
so she's got
fully...
2 years, up to 2 years, without even having to get a job after the end of her course. That's the graduate visa route.
Yeah, but then the problem comes with, how do you go from that to just suddenly, what it would combine will be, 19 or so between us, each rather? It's a bit...
Yeah, 20 each, give or take, plus the health surcharge, of course.
And I really feel for the guy in the Northern Ireland earlier on.
You're in a similar situation, albeit
a very similar situation.
You're together, and Lee and Sarah are not together at the moment. They're thousands of miles apart. I wonder, James, whether or not there's two possibilities here. They didn't contemplate the situation that people like you and your fiancé find yourselves in, or they did and just thought there's not enough of you to make any difference. But that leaves us wondering who's on the other side of the scales. Who are the people who love the fact that your life has been thrown into turmoil, or that Lee's life, in his own words, has been ruined potentially, albeit, the sooner you apply, the more likely you are to snuck under the current rules rather than the new ones whenever they come in. Who are the people celebrating this? Who are the
That's
people
it. But
loving it?
What are my options? It's do we rush getting married and then just do it this way, or because that sort of takes away the point, right? We just want to live our lives.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen. If I was in my old-fashioned mode, I'd point out that you've been going out for 10 years. I don't know how long a run-up you need, man.
Well, yeah, but to be fair, 9 of it was long distance.
Yes.
To be fair,
yeah, exactly. And also, why should these weird external gallery-pleasing postures from pathetic politicians like Cleverly and Sunak have such a profound impact on your personal life? It's actually extraordinary.
It's mad. And I was just hearing the words of your last call as well. It's like, I know plenty of people who might think, oh, it's good, but then I speak to them and go, what about my situation?
Yeah.
Then what?
Don't mean you. And Malta, of course, was in the EU, so until 2020, you could have been hopping from one place to the other to your heart's content.
Well, that was it. We got together before Brexit even happened, and it's just, I'm at a loss, man.
Yeah, well, you and me both, but I promise I'll keep you company if you keep me company. James, take care. I'm sorry for this. I'm sorry for all the unnecessary trauma that's been inflicted on the lives of people wherever you're from. Plenty of British people having their lives thrown into turmoil because they've had the audacity to fall in love with somebody born somewhere else. Gosh, just like Nigel Farage did. It's 1 minute after 12. 4 minutes after 12 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where we will turn our attention next to something I mentioned in the last hour. I think this is... I should probably keep a list somewhere. Do you keep lists? Are you good at lists? I always start lists. I've been going through old boxes lately, sort of sorting stuff out. And it turns out I never got past February when I kept diaries. I was even appointments diaries, to be honest with you. I'd always start the new year thinking, do you know what, it's time I got a bit more organised. It's time I got a bit more organised. I never got past February. And it's the same with lists. I must start making to-do lists because I keep forgetting stuff. I've been saved by technology, so I do actually put stuff in the calendar on my phone. And then most days I remember to check. I've been so busy lately up and down the country with the new book that I've needed to check. I have that. Do you get that? See, if you don't make lists and you're not very organised, you will recognise what I'm talking about. But if you are quite organised and you make lists, you won't know what I mean by the constant nagging fear that you're supposed to be somewhere else. If I go through a period of great busyness, which I've just gone through. We're out the other end now. I had a wonderful time at St Andrew Holborn last night doing the Coram Christmas Carol concert. Coram, of course, a charity I feel very, very strongly about. Love working with. That was the last thing in my day. After this mad rush, I've got something at the Comedy Store next week, but I've got nothing today. And so whereas last week I was thinking, God, what day is it? It's Tuesday. I'm meant to be in Manchester. A week before, Wednesday, I'm supposed to be in Norwich. And you've got that nagging feeling that the phone's about to ring. And it's going to be someone saying, hey, mate, we're just wondering what time what time you're getting here. And you go, well, sorry, who? What do you do? I can't be the only person who lives like that. I just can't be. But I'm in a good place now. So you should make lists. Keep a diary, never got beyond February. 6 minutes after 12 is the time. And I've completely forgotten why I was sharing that little insight into my existence with you, because the conversation I want to have with you next is about people making changes to their working life. Yes, that was it. I want to keep a list of the things that we have as a sort of gentle simmer. So the subjects we come back to, they don't have to be in the news. The best example at the moment is AI. The way that AI is growing so quickly that the phone-in we had, say, a year ago, where I would have been going, ooh, AI, eh? Ooh, gosh, what's that all about, eh? Ooh, crikey. 0345 and then people would ring out and go, it's amazing, it's done my homework. Or I've just got it to do a James O'Brien monologue. And then, even 3 months after that, the phone-in would be completely different. 6 months later, and now you're moving into the realms where we're talking about all sorts of ramifications and repercussions of AI. So the topics that are, I can't call them growers, that sounds weird, but the topics that are sort of like live topics, so that every time we come to it, it's the same topic, but the stories have changed. That works. You understand what I'm talking about. I should have a list of those. I can do them on quiet days. Can anyone remember what I said yesterday I wanted to do today? I said we should come back to this. I'm actually talking now to my so-called colleagues rather than anybody listening to the programme from an unpaid perspective. Can you remember the thing I said yesterday that I wanted to come back to today? Anybody? Beulah? No? Nothing. It's incredible. School dinners. I wanted to do a comparison of school dinners in other parts of the world. So this is why, I know some of you are thinking you don't need to make lists, James. That's what producers do or colleagues. But that is why I need to start perhaps making lists. I thought today we would do a comparison of school dinners from lots of other places in the world. But hey-ho, unless I remember it myself, it's going to go down the Swanee River. So I put this on the list. People who've changed their relationship with work. People who have dialed it down a bit. Now, we started doing this during lockdown, but that didn't really count. That didn't really count because lockdown was inflicted upon us. Lockdown was a set of circumstances about which we had no choice. And then as we came out of lockdown, we had these conversations. And, God, it's amazing. Lots of people listening were paying attention yesterday. James was. School lunches in France, food in schools abroad. You're absolutely right. You should have got in a little bit earlier. I might start inviting you to the pre-production conversations. We have conversations when we came out of lockdown and the changes that you'd made to your life were beginning to bed in a bit. And you rang me up and you told me you've gone down to 3 days or you've taken early retirement. You did the sums during lockdown, and you found yourself thinking, do you know what? I don't actually have to carry on like this. I always remember that graffiti on the M40 coming into London. It's not there anymore, but it was there for a long time when I first lived in London, and it was unmissable. It used to say right across some fencing that was perfectly placed for graffiti, aimed obviously at commuters coming into London every day, and it used to say, why do I still do this every day? And as a slightly ridiculous, idealistic teenager who listened to too much Ray Davies, I thought that was brilliant. Why do I still do this every day? That's really sticking it to the man. The answer, of course, is because your kids need shoes and the mortgage needs paying and all the rest of it. But quite a lot of people during lockdown and then afterwards kind of recalibrated and recalculated their terms and conditions, as it were, their priorities, their incomes and their outgoings. They did a bit of a Mr. Micawber and worked out what was coming in and what was going out. And they decided, much to their own surprise, they decided to make some fairly meaningful changes to their work-life balance. And I think it's time that we return to that topic again today, because COVID handouts are being blamed by central bankers for, and the words they use are verbs like lagging behind and less willing to work. But I don't like that language. I don't like that language. I don't want to talk about scrounging, because I think that's such an unhelpful and distracting phrase. And I don't think it's relevant here. I think what we're talking about here is people who, as a consequence partly of lockdown and partly of the fact that they were able to fund their lockdown through furlough, they've just decided to change the way they operate. They've decided to dial down their work-life balance, to dial down work and dial up life. In fact, they almost give the game away on this one. The Bank of International Settlements said workers' preferences have shifted in favour of fewer working hours. And that what may be interesting, the unwillingness to work. Why do you call it an unwillingness to work and not the embracing of more leisure time? Do you see what I mean about the lingo? This is the Telegraph, which went nuts on lockdown, didn't it? It was probably because of property investments and terror that people were not going to need offices anymore, and the investments that they had in commercial real estate were going to be rendered worthless if everybody carried on working from home forever. But this isn't even about working from home. This is about people being paid not to work. And they say that the unwillingness to work has been most pronounced in countries such as Britain that gave the biggest handouts. They weren't handouts, essentially, were they? They were welfare designed to keep the economy ticking over when people couldn't actually get paid for work because they couldn't do the work. The government here, as you know, spent tens of billions to furlough workers, as did the United States and Canada. So there it is. The accusation is that this is a negative thing. They use words like lagging behind and unwillingness to work. I want to remove it from the macro and focus on the micro. I want to stop talking about the broader trends and talk instead about the individual experiences. It is problematic, not least for the reasons that we talked about in the first 2 hours of the programme. There are huge vacancies in this country, but you can't force people who don't want to work, especially not if they're self-funding. You know, if they've calculated their savings and their outgoings and their pensions and thought, you know what, I could dial it down. There is an argument that you can force people who are relying on the welfare state and not working, you can force them to work. But I think there's a fairly clear indication of what a tiny constituency that is when you see how quickly they've moved to going after people on long-term sickness or disability benefits. So who is it exactly that you're going to corral into work that they can't currently do? Poorly and disabled people, James. That's another Tory policy that seems to be defining the direction of traffic in this country at the moment. So I'm not talking about you if you're off sick or if you can't work for medical reasons. I'm talking about you if you decided in the last few years, probably, although not necessarily as a consequence of lockdowns, you've just decided that you either wanted to work less or you wanted to knock work on the head entirely, much earlier than originally scheduled. Okay? And that is what I want you to tell me about. I'm simply going to ask you how it's going. So if you've already rung me on this subject, I don't know that I suppose you can ring me and tell me that things are ticking along quite nicely, but have people started changing their minds? Have people who came out of COVID thinking, do you know what, my work-life balance is toxic, I'm going to start dialing down the work and dialing up the life, working less and living more. I love that old line about, do you live to work or do you work to live? You want to work to live, really. You want to be sort of taking the earnings that you work for to fund the life that you love. If you're lucky enough to love your work, you're in a slightly different category, but we've got to be careful on days like this not to sound too smug. That's the question. Did you dial it down as a consequence of lifestyle changes, whether due to COVID or not? And now that we're a few years out and some rather unkind voices are describing you as being unwilling to work or lagging behind, can we do it from a more positive perspective and talk instead about choosing to work less? And what is it like? How surprised are you at how little you need, perhaps? The old line about doing a job you hate to buy things you don't want, to impress people you don't like. I used to quote that line quite a lot. I don't know why. I just think that rampant consumerism, and I'm not a hippie by any stretch of the imagination. I love my creature comforts, but doing a job you don't enjoy, to buy things you don't need, to impress people you don't like, seemed like such a definition of the early 21st century Western experience that I can't quite see how breaking that pattern is such a bad thing for most of us, as opposed to an improvement to your life. But hey, what do I know? 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. Economists, central bankers and the like are queuing up to accuse Brits in particular of lagging behind in the return to the workplace and being unwilling to work. I wonder whether we need to deploy slightly different language and talk about improving our work-life balance and recognising what life is for, as opposed to becoming ever more shackled wage slaves. But I want to know how it's working out for you. What made you make the decision, and how is it working out for you? 12:16 is the time. The number you need, as ever, is 0345 6060 973. 12:19 is the time. It's a funny one, this, because you know I'm right, don't you? It's weird how the language of negativity is deployed to describe people who are prioritising themselves over their jobs. Can't believe I just said that in a sentence. It took me about 18 minutes to articulate that a moment. Let's crack on, shall we? Andrew's in Scunthorpe. Andrew, what have you done, and how's it working out?
Hello.
Well, the first thing you need to do is buy a new phone, mate. Sorry, I can't work in these circumstances. We'll try and get that sorted and come back to you. Steve's in Congleton. Steve, what's going on?
Well, I was working full-time, James, as an international technical manager just before COVID. And I realised...
International technical manager. Fantastic.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So all over the place, very busy, well paid. But I just realised the lifestyle was not doing me any good at all.
When did that thought enter your head?
They threatened to fire me a little while back, and I thought, if they do that, I could actually manage okay.
How funny.
So then I
started
thinking about... It did, yeah. So I sort of fired myself, left in around the summer of 2019. I'd had a brilliant garden leave session, and then I went to work part-time for a friend. So I dropped my hours and pay massively and thoroughly enjoyed that.
So did you actually, from a place of fear, calculate what your life would be like if they did fire you, and then realise that actually it wouldn't be that bad?
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, yeah.
And how are you getting on?
Yeah, pretty good. I over the COVID period, I didn't do any work because I wasn't furloughed.
Right. Well, that was tricky. That eats into the savings a bit, doesn't it?
That did a bit, but then again, like most people, I couldn't spend the money anyway,
right.
So
that's true.
It didn't really have much of an effect. So,
what do you miss from your days as a high earner?
I miss the difficult technical problems and trying to work with people from all over Europe trying to solve problems in the world. But that was about 10% of the job. The other 90% I don't miss at all. And
you haven't really. I mean, when I said that, you've told me what you miss about the specifics of the job you used to do, not what you miss about having the big salary. No, I saved most of it anyway to retire. So I never sort of lived the lifestyle that had the money attached to it. Except on
expenses. I knew I was trying to get out early.
Except the stuff like the flights and the travel and the entertainment on expenses. And how would you describe the changes within you, Steve? If indeed there have been any.
It's been a lot better for me. I'm a lot calmer now, hell of a lot calmer. And I do things I actually enjoy doing rather than don't want to do.
It's not exactly the language of lagging behind or being unwilling to work, is it? It sounds like the language of a healthier, happier human. 22 after 12, Anthony's in Reigate. Anthony, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Thanks for having me on. First time caller, long time listener.
Welcome aboard.
So my story starts before the lockdowns.
Right.
I've got a genetic cardiac condition which was worsening gradually over time. My wife quit work in order to educate our children at home during the lockdowns. I was working from home all through that time.
Yeah.
And then on September the 26th, 2021, I died, but I got better.
How long were you dead for?
I was dead for less than a minute. And effectively, I got a pacemaker in. And so I died in my sleep, and my wife was crying next to me when I woke up when my pacemaker brought me back.
Good Lord.
So I went into hospital, spent 4.5 months in hospital, double open heart surgery, came home, tried to get back into work, office-based job, obviously.
Yeah.
And have really struggled with that, but I'm very keen to get back into it because I can feel myself going stir crazy.
Right.
Not having that kind of social interaction, but also feeling like I'm contributing to things. But that whole life quake really made me reevaluate what I wanted to do for my retirement.
Right.
And whereas previously I'd kind of gone, well, I might not make it to retirement.
Yeah.
Suddenly having that someone grab you by the collar and shake you.
Oh, I don't doubt that. So what changes have you made?
Well, we've started to plan longer term. So our mortgage is fixed rate pretty much up until the house is paid off. Our kids are bilingual. My wife is French.
Right.
So I, through her, can get a French passport. My kids are registered as French citizens, so they can have French passports. And we're now considering selling up our house in the southeast of England in order to...
And buying a castle in France.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I know. You get a heck of a lot for your money. You really do. And I'd urge you to crack on with the passport applications as well, because it takes... It can take a while. Actually, I don't know whether the French ones do, but I know the Irish ones have done. Anthony, I'm glad to hear that. Take care. Matthew's in Eaglescliff. Matthew, the changes you've made, not necessarily as a consequence of a near-death experience, more as a genuine sort of clear recalibration of priorities. What have you done?
I dropped a day at work for my own well-being, really, but also... it was to give a bit of care to my family, to my mum and dad, who are ageing. I was just finding it difficult to juggle everything. I didn't realise how stressed out I was.
What was the breaking point?
So much every day.
What was the breaking point or the penny drop moment? When did you realise that you couldn't carry on like that?
It was definitely my mental health. I just realised that I wasn't sleeping. I was getting ill quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I thought that the money was really going to be a big issue, and that's the thing that stopped me doing it earlier. Yes. I was worried. And whilst I have taken a financial hit, I've been able to make cutbacks, just little ones here and there, and it's not been easy. But I am much less stressed, even though money's a bit tighter, particularly with the cost of living. And it's been a revelation to me, and I'm hoping later this year to do the same again, to drop another day.
Really? Moving in that direction? Yeah. How was your employer about it?
They've been good. You can put in one request a year to reduce your hours.
Okay.
And they don't have to agree to it, but
they'll have a look at it.
You can put in your reasoning for it, and explain why, and then they will judge it based on its merits and whether or not the business can cope.
So, I mean, obviously I didn't speak to you before you did this, but you just the sort of air of calmness is what you're describing to me, isn't it? As opposed to constant. Oh. It's a bit like plinning spates. I nearly said then. It's a bit like spinning plates, isn't it? Really, and you know that one of them is going to fall, and you want to get to a place where you know you can comfortably keep them all spinning without living in a state of constant tension, hypervigilance almost.
Yeah, and the funny thing is when I first dropped the day, I actually found it really hard not to be thinking about work.
Yeah.
And it's taken me quite a long time to come to terms with the fact that there is a day I'm not there and things will happen. And sometimes I come into things that are a bit of a surprise to me because they've happened on the day I'm not there. But very, very quickly now I've got the hang of it.
Recalibrating.
I've learned, to say, I don't need to be thinking about work. But
it's
it
a funny
took
one,
a long time to get to that. Yeah, it is.
We're conditioned.
It's like being a bit of a prisoner to it. Yeah. Completely.
I like this. Someone said, "How dare the masses exercise some control over how they choose to live their lives?" That's from Deborah. And she's right, isn't she? I mean, the language in this Telegraph article is extraordinary because you are unwilling to work, Matthew, and you are lagging behind. And I mean, when in fact, as with all the callers really so far, you are describing a huge improvement to your personal well-being.
Well, I've been able to indulge in hobbies that have had to take a back seat. So I love singing, I love playing guitar, and I've come along in leaps and bounds.
Well, you say that. I'd have to take an objective judge on that, mate.
I'm still rubbish. I'm a better singer than I am a guitarist.
But that's so good for your mental health. Everyone knows that. Hobbies in general, singing in particular, just stuff that lets you get out of yourself, get out of your... And he said get out of your head, but that's not quite what I mean. That's a different kind of hobby, and we're both too old for that sort of thing these days. I love that. And was there any sort of weirdness around you? Any sort of resistance or reluctance, or did people find it? I mean, because it's still not normal, is it, for men to talk about their mental health? Or it's a lot more normal than it used to be. But did anyone look at you a bit askance when you told them what you were planning, what you were doing?
Yeah, definitely. And my family in particular were worried about, well, what about the money? You know, you have children. What if you haven't got enough to make ends meet? And that was a concern. And again, that was one of the things that held me back. But because I'm healthier and happier, I'm a much better person to be around.
You're more present
for my children. Yeah. So now I can spend more time with them. And it's the time and energy that benefits them more than the money.
Well, that's the definition of priority. I mean, literally couldn't have written or scripted, even with AI, a better description of reprioritising over, we will have to make some changes according to income, but the changes that will allow us to make according to well-being and presentness and engagement and family will be immeasurably valuable forever. Oh, what a lovely call. Thank you, Matthew. Lottie Morley is here now with your headlines. 26 minutes to 1 is the time. As you've heard in the headlines probably in the course of the programme, several schools in Wales, in the Aberfan region of South Wales, have been placed in lockdown as police respond to what they have described as a major incident. We know that armed officers are on the scene. Mike Hughes is LBC's Wales editor, and he joins me now. What else do we know, Mike?
Well, James, what we know so far is that all of this started shortly after 9 o'clock this morning. South Wales Police saying that they were called to reports of a serious assault that took place in the Moy Road area of Aberfan, and armed officers were are at the scene. They're asking people to stay well clear of that area. What I can tell you is that the pictures that we have seen so far is that area is absolutely teeming with police officers right now. There is police tape, and several items have been bagged up as well as evidence. What we also know is that the Welsh Ambulance Service were also notified roughly at the same time, about 9:10. They sent several vehicles there. An ambulance, the air ambulance, was also dispatched, as well as an emergency critical care response vehicle. One person has been taken to the University Hospital of Wales in Cardiff. They were conveyed by road, so that could tell us about the seriousness of the injuries that person has sustained. Of course, as you can probably imagine as well, local politicians in the area are responding to this. Gerald Jones, the MP for Merthyr, saying that he's in contact with police, as well as Dawn Bowden, who is the member of the Senedd for that area. And as you said at the top, James, several schools have been put into lockdown as well, at least 2 that we know of. One has taken to social media to say that they have kept all the pupils and staff inside and locked the perimeter gates. Another school electing to inform parents via text message to say that they are taking precautions as well. As I say, this is very much an ongoing incident at the moment. We do not have confirmation from police that anyone has been taken into custody at this stage, and as I say, police still at the scene.
Mike, many thanks. Mike Hughes there, LBC's Wales editor, describing a developing situation, or at least an unconcluded situation in Aberfan in South Wales, where schools remain in lockdown and armed officers, as you heard, multiple armed officers remain on the scene after a reported stabbing near a school. 12:36 is the time. I'm drawn to the politics of this. I wasn't initially drawn to the politics of it, but the tension between the system telling us that we have to work harder. They almost seem spooked. This was a bit of lockdown I didn't understand, was when if I say the establishment or vested interests, it already sounds a little bit conspiracy theory. But it really spooked the horses, didn't it? The idea that the workforce might realise that they don't have to carry on as they have been carrying on so far. I mean, furlough, in a way, subconsciously planted the seed that there's enough money in circulation to sort of just keep circulating. And therefore, that's where universal basic income comes in, isn't it? The idea that why do I have to put in a 48-hour week when other people are just sitting watching their fortune grow as a consequence of my hard work? And then you realised that they were absolutely terrified that the commercial property fruit machines might stop paying out. Again, people in a position to inherit or buy commercial property just get sent checks every week by the people inhabiting the buildings. And you sort of go, well, why can't they all work from home? That would be much more efficient. That would save costs for all of it. And it really spooked the horses. And they're still a bit spooked, partly because of people like Rick, who is currently in Cheshire, and you'll understand the currently in a moment. He says, 2021, we worked out we could sell our house, move onto a narrow boat and work far fewer hours. So we quit. Marketing manager and teacher. Moved onto a boat, continuously cruising, couple of days work a week each from the boat. Rest of the time we're enjoying life and exploring the UK's waterways, both in our very early 40s. And so glad that we chose to do this now and not when we were too old to enjoy it quite as much. I live near a canal. I'm fascinated by the canal boat communities. Quite changing. Some are permanent. Some of them quite fluid. I can see the appeal of that, but I don't know. I struggle with the space myself, I think. 12:38 is the time. Don't text me about canal boats, all right? I mean, Rick's story's lovely, but I don't want to open up a canal boat of worms. Canal boat of worms. Oh, forget it. Donna's in Tooting. Donna, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello.
I just recently quit my job. Well, I quit it last week, worked my notice, finished last week, with nothing to go to. And the catalyst for it really is a number of things. My friends and I always used to say, we don't want to live to work, we're like a work to live kind of thing. So work for me was funding the things that I love to do, travel, shopping, and more travel. It was just enjoyment. And I just thought, do I want to work until 60-something before I can fully enjoy that? And I thought, no, I don't want to do that. A number of things, though, that sort of fell into place that meant I could do it is I was planning to buy a property. It fell through a number of times. Oh. And after the last time, I thought, I'm not doing this anymore. So I've got that money set aside, and I don't think I'm going to buy a property anymore because do I then want to be committed to a mortgage for X amount of years when I could be doing other things?
So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Do you know?
A bit of travelling. I have a plan, which is I'd like to contract.
Yes.
And if it doesn't work out, I can go back to the full-time
But
work.
You enjoyed your full-time work in one sense.
I really did.
Yes,
I did.
You didn't enjoy what it was doing to you in another, perhaps.
Yeah, it was when I was on holiday, I'd still be accessible. You can still Slack me. You can still email me. It was very hard for me to separate my time as my time, because it felt like, yes, it's 9 to 5, but it was almost like 24/7. Do you know what I mean? If I checked my messages, when you check your messages at random times, I'd get a random message at a random time, and I'd be kicking myself like, why did I check? So I just wanted to remove myself from that. The company that I worked for was great. I have zero complaints about it. Career-wise, I thought I wanted to be higher than I got.
Right.
And then there was an opportunity that I didn't get, and it made me assess, okay, maybe this is not for me.
I've got too much riding on this, as it were. I care too much about this.
I care too much, yeah. So that combined with, I'm with my parents, so I don't have a mortgage, I don't have rent. That was a huge advantage for me.
So it is exactly the case that you just had a look around and noticed things you hadn't noticed before, because we're on conveyor belts, aren't we?
Yeah.
Most of the time, and we don't realise that you can Dave puts it in slightly more Citizen Smith style terms. He says our Western societies depend on almost everyone working, being taxed and buying things. Anyone not conforming is tagged as being not a team player. Well, I'm not playing by their rules anymore. You just sit down and work out what you can and can't do, and it's quite different from what you thought you had to do.
Yes, exactly. And when I told people at work I was leaving, they're like, okay, so where are you going to? I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. They're like, oh, Oh, okay, because you're meant to go somewhere else.
That frightens people, because that's like that's like a zebra that's grown spots instead of stripes. Everyone's going, "Oh my God, what's happened?" That's so weird.
Yeah.
But I like it.
So do I.
It's early days. It's early days. I wish you luck.
Thank you so much.
Seriously, hey, and also, why not have a look around? But then again, the language that you will be greeted with in some workplaces is the language of being unwilling to work or lagging behind. I like this one from Patrick, who's in Balham. Left work as the chief financial officer of a big listed company, did some therapy and now work part-time. Loving the slower pace. Time to invest in community, support my wife, who's still working full-time, but way less, much more at peace. Not lagging behind. But the language of unwilling to work and lagging behind, I think, plays into Dave's point about society kind of depending on this, what do we call it? The hamster wheel, don't we? The grind. Chris is in Colchester. Chris, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Thanks for having me on.
Very welcome.
So just a little bit of background. So my situation was that, so I was working, I've worked for the company ever since I left school. I'd worked my way up to a really decent role in my mind, but it had become, relentless. It was a 5-day-a-week job, but it actually ended up sort of taking over your life.
Yeah.
Excuse me. The company did sort of recognise that the role needed to change, so that they moved to a 4-day working week, which was probably the start of sort of that niggle in my mind of actually there is more to life than doing these silly hours and things. Then end of 2019, I ended up having a couple of weeks off with stress,
right?
Because I'd literally reached the point where I couldn't face going to work. Early 2020, the company then went through my department went through like a consultation for redundancy.
Yeah.
And even though I was successful, I actually opted to take the voluntary because I'd built up 16 years or so of I've got a little pot of money, which I used as a little bit of the idea was to use that as a bit of a buffer, and then I'd find something else. However, the process concluded early 2020, so COVID started rearing its head. I got a new job with one of the old company's suppliers. They took me on pretty straight away. And everything's good, it's fine. Furlough then kicked in when people had to all stay at home, and it was during that furlough period that I was like, actually, I don't want to just leave one company and move to another one and carry on doing the same, 5 days,
sure,
hours a week. So, I feel.
So what are you doing now? What are you doing now?
Well, this is the mad thing. So I feel guilty because I feel like I should be doing more.
Yeah.
But I know that I'm doing the right thing for me. So now I work for that same company, the one that took me on after I took redundancy from the other place. But it's completely on my terms. So I'm on a 0 hours contract.
So you work when you want to?
Yeah. So they'll say, oh, we've got a project coming up or this amount of work or whatever. And I literally have, the gift of saying, yes, please, or no, thank you.
And you're dealing with the financial hit on that?
Yeah, so luckily, the savings that I'd built up over my career, and I had been, I was a bit of a recluse, and I never went out and I saved money.
Sure.
But I haven't had to dive into that. So I've still got that little nest egg sitting there just in case. But
well, you keep things ticking over, and you've
changed the way we do things at home. So we might not go out all the time, but
and it's definitely the right thing to do. And you're seeing more of your family as well.
Yeah. So my daughter was 4 when I took the redundancy.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I didn't, I would have just carried on working the way I was. But I would never have done the school drop off. I would never picked her up from school. Never seen any of the midweek school events.
Yeah.
By doing what I did, I've literally done all of that. I drop her off every day. I pick her up every day. We do stuff after school. It's just, it's incredible.
And it is, I can tell. And it wouldn't have crossed your mind if it wasn't for those, quite a collection of circumstances.
Those little steps
Yeah.
Yeah, those little steps that like the 4-day week, and then furlough, and it was just like, actually, no, this isn't for me.
It's like there's a window in your own house that you didn't know existed before, and you suddenly find a way to look through it, and everything changed. I love that, Chris. I'm a bit late for the break. It's the only reason I'm moving on. But that, I mean, a lot of parents will be thinking about what you said about school gates and pickups and drop-offs and things. But it's a funny old world. 12:47. 10 to 1 is the time. I mean, there are problems, of course. An awful lot of people listening to this won't be able to make anything like the changes that other people are discussing. But hey-ho, it is a phenomenon. We've caused problems in Croydon. Glenn's been in touch. He says, you've caused a row. I've just worked out how much cheaper it would be for us to sell up and live on a canal boat, enjoying the British countryside. The good lady is not amused. Tim's in Newcastle. He says, I left Reach last year as a snapper of 30-plus years standing. Do I need to translate that? Reach is the company that owns the Mirror and the Express, who's a newspaper photographer. Now I'm a voluntary driver with Guide Dogs UK, Care for Calais and Cats Protection. I've never been happier, and I feel that I'm making a real contribution to the community. Whereas Peter points out, a bit of a fun sponge, Peter, if you don't mind me saying so, but it's an important contribution. We live in a mature society which depends upon everybody making an active contribution in order that all areas within it can function properly for the common good of all. While some individuals may find a way to opt out without making a major difference, if too many people did so, society would cease to function as it should and begin to break down, to the detriment of all, from the civil unrest that would ensue. It's funny, Peter, because the idea of never doing a day's work in your life, but living off the interest accrued or the dividends delivered on inherited wealth and investments doesn't seem to trouble the perspective you describe. And yet somebody who's worked for 30 years deciding they're not going to work for another 30, but actually take it a little bit easier, leads to civil unrest. And I'm not saying you're wrong. That's the way our society is structured. No problem whatsoever with people living off the fat of other people's labour, but if anybody else should decide to moderate the amount of labour they're prepared to do, I'm always reminded of the boss. I've done this line, I do it almost every week. I just really like it. The boss who takes his employee out into the car park, shows him his new car, shows him his new Ferrari. He says, you see that Ferrari there? And the employee goes, yeah, it's lovely, boss. I thought, oh, I love that. And he goes, if you work hard this year, then this time next year, I could have another one. I love that. I don't know why I love that so much. I just think it works. Harry's in Lakeside. Harry, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Hello. Love that joke.
It's grand, isn't it? It works very well.
Fantastic. I just want to tell you a little bit more about my personal experience. I was a manager for a very prestigious Swiss watch boutique somewhere in London.
Yeah.
And the job is absolutely horrendous from my perspective, because I just remember getting up at 6 o'clock and won't get back home till about 9 o'clock every night. I got a group text message and I receive, and I kid you not, no fewer than 200 messages a day. Not all of them are for me, but I have to keep looking at them.
Right.
My quality of life is just unbelievably
This is
downgraded.
tracking sales, is it? And
yeah, and my hire manager keeps asking me, why are you underperforming? I mean, there's only certain things from a manager's perspective I can do. And plus, I really, really love reading.
Right.
But working in that job, I just find myself absolutely having no time whatsoever. In fact, I had to cancel one of my holidays to go back to work. It's incredibly stressful.
Crikey.
And one day I just decided to ask myself, what's the point of doing this? So I decided to quit my job, stay at home and just read to my heart's content. And I opened up a book recommendation and book review channel on YouTube, and my life is so much happier now.
What are you doing for money, though?
My wife, luckily, we don't have any mortgage left to pay. My wife works a quite decent job, so financially, for me at least, I'm okay for the next couple of years. And I to use this time to really read as much as I want to, and finding similar sort of people who have a similar interest online, and just communicate and
so how old? Can I ask how old you are roughly?
I'm 42.
Oh, okay. So I thought you were going to be... I thought you sounded about 42, but then when you talked about having already paid the mortgage off and stepping back like that, I thought you were going to sound a bit older. I thought you were going to be a bit older.
No, because I'm Chinese British,
right?
And with our culture, it's not all me or my wife. Our family contributed towards the mortgage, so we were quite lucky in that. So
you looked at your outgoings and you thought, I don't need these incomings. I certainly don't need these incomings if they're going to make me ill, which that level of stress was doing.
Yeah.
And you just thought, and your wife is comfortable with all this, Harry? Because
my wife is incredibly supportive because she always loved reading and she completely understands it. And by the way, your book is absolutely amazing, James. I did the review on my channel. I love it.
You're very kind. Well, we'll have to now you've said that, I'll have to give you a free mention for the channel. But do you read? It's a slightly odd thing to say. I just gave up work so I could read and read and read and read. Do you read everything? Do you read all sorts of books?
I read I read everything, fiction, non-fiction, everything. I just love reading. I was an inspirational. I want to be a writer, but then I realised that perhaps I haven't got that much of a talent.
Well, don't say that. Don't say that. Just keep practicing. Keep plugging away. Seriously, if I can do it, anyone can do it. What's the name? What's the name of the YouTube channel?
It's called Harry's Book Cafe.
Oh, I like that. That's lovely. Harry's Book Cafe. I shall have a look at it. I've got some bad news for you.
Go on.
The only other person I can think of who gave everything up to read was Dominic Cummings.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah.
You didn't build a bunker. You didn't build a bunker on your father's farm, did you? And then move into it for 2 years to read science and history books in order to work out how the world works.
I wish I could, James.
Well, I know you do, but that's what he did. That's what Harry's Book Cafe. There you go. Get yourself down there. I'll have a latte. It is coming up to Harry. Thank you. I love that. Gosh, what are you going to do? I'm going to give up work and just read. I don't need much if I'm reading. Just a chair. All I want is a room somewhere, far away from the cold night air, with one enormous chair. Oh, nice. Paul's in Farnham. Last word to Paul. What have you got?
Oh, hi, James. Thanks for taking my call.
You're very welcome. I've literally only got a minute. I've been wanging on too long. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. I come at it from a slightly different angle. So I was working in London for about 8 years in advertising.
Yeah.
And I was quite happy with my job, and the work was mildly interesting, and the salary was okay. But it was actually when I got a promotion, it was, a decent promotion, but it made me realise that actually if I took it, I'd become trapped within this system where I would need to make that much money.
Your life would catch up with the income, and then you'd be in a kind of pincer movement almost.
Absolutely, and I'd been doing pottery as a hobby for years and years, and I'd taken on some commissions for some films, just really small bits and pieces.
Right.
And I thought, actually, you know what? Maybe this could have legs. So when I got my promotion, I turned it down, quit my job.
And
sold
made
my
the
house.
leap.
And me and my partner moved to the Midlands for a few years, and I retrained in pottery.
To the potteries?
Yeah. But we've moved back down now. But,
fantastic.
Yeah,
what's the name of your company?
It's Paul Wheeler Pottery.
I love that, Paul. I mean, that is literally following your dream, which a lot of people did today. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back on Catch Up on Global Player, where you can also pause and rewind live radio. You'll also find all of LBC shows to catch up on, as well as all of Global's live radio stations. Pause and rewind live radio on Global Player, where you're always in control. Download for free from your app store or head to globalplayer.com. Coming up at 4 on LBC, it's Tom Swarbrick, but now it's time for Sheila Fogarty.
You make a terrible salesman.
You're joking, aren't you?
Oh,
Should have seen me in
I
action.
don't know.
Should have seen me in action on the shop floor at Aquascutum on Regent Street.
Oh, very nice.
I could sell
you in gentlemen's what's-its.
I could sell a suit to anybody. I could back in the day. And a cashmere coat.
A monkey?
20 grand. I could sell a suit to a monkey. I could sell a suit to a monkey. 36 extra short. I'd start with. Maybe take a little bit out of the leg.
Quite a lot out of the leg.
Take in the side seams.
Yeah. Shoulder room.
All of that.
That kind of thing. The room.
All of that.
That kind of thing. The room.
All of that.
That kind of thing. The room.
All of that.
That kind of thing. The room.
All of that.
That kind of thing. The room.
All of that.
That kind of thing. The room.
All of that.
That kind of thing. The room.
All of that.
That kind of thing. The room.
All of that.
That kind of thing. The room.
All of that.
That kind of thing. The room.
All of that.
That kind of thing. The room.
All of that.
That kind of thing. The room.
All of that.
That kind of thing. The room.
All of that.